Chapter 520. Xianyang City, outside the west side of the city. Yu Haoran did not find it strange when the middle-aged scholar with the surname Meng mentioned his various deeds at the 100 Gate. After all, with the Emperor Qin's kingdom's pervasive intelligence network and the hundreds of years of grudges with the 100 Gate, it was not difficult for them to find out what happened at the 100 Gate. Furthermore, his various deeds in the sect were all major events that shook the entire sect and even affected all the subsidiary powers of the sect. They could easily find out about it by asking around. Young friend, could it be that the 100 Gate only sent the two of you to participate in the Qin Alliance Conference? The middle-aged scholar with the surname Meng asked doubtfully as he pointed at Wu Jingjun, who was standing behind Yu Haoran and emitting a cold aura. From this point alone, it could be seen how strict the military rules of the Emperor Qin's kingdom were and how sinister the middle-aged scholar with the surname Meng was. As one of the three great empires in the Tianxin continent, the Emperor Qin's kingdom's overall strength was not inferior to the 7 top sections. The Emperor Qin's kingdom officially held the conference and personally sent out an invitation. Even the 7 top sects would at least send a core elder of the martial saint realm to show the importance they attach to the Qin Alliance Conference and their respect for the Emperor Qin's kingdom. But what about the 100 Gate? Although the position of the deputy sect leader was very high, Yu Haoran and Wu Jingjun were limited by their age. It was already very difficult for them to reach the martial master realm in their cultivation. As a second-rate sect, the 100 Gate had sent 2 youths who could not make the decision. This was simply looking down on the Emperor Qin's kingdom. If it was an ordinary person, they would have already turned hostile. However, the middle-aged scholar with the surname Meng still had a smile on his face and did not look angry at all. Hearing the middle-aged scholar's question, Yu Haoran quickly turned his head and looked behind him. He saw that Gao Wanping was rushing over and quickly explained, "Lord Meng, I am the peak master of the 100 Gate's law enforcement peak. I am here to participate in the Qin Alliance Conference as the deputy envoy. It's just that one of my senior brothers isn't feeling well. The peak lord was taking care of him just now." Gao Wanping arrived at Yu Haoran's side as soon as he finished explaining. "Martial Uncle Gao, let me introduce you." Yu Haoran decided to take the initiative to introduce Gao Wanping to him. But Gao Wanping's happy laughter and the excitement on Scholar Meng's face made him obediently choose to shut his mouth. "Brother Mengyun, long time no see. How are you?" Gao Wanping directly walked past Yu Haoran and greeted him with a smile. "Brother Wanping, I really miss you after we parted in the capital." Mengyun also took a few steps forward. He sighed emotionally as he hugged Gao Wanping. "Brother Mengyun, when we fought side by side all those years ago, I once predicted that you would surely be able to enter the Grand Council in the future and control 1,000,000 mighty soldiers." After hugging him tightly, Gao Wanping patted Mengyun's shoulder and sighed. "It seems like my prophecy has come true. That's right. It's a pity that Brother Wanping refused to stay in the army and insisted on returning to the 100 Gate to continue being the peak master of the law enforcement peak. Otherwise, with your brave performance back then, the speed at which your strength increased, and the importance that the general placed on you, the position of left assistant minister of the Ministry of War would probably be yours." Mengyun also sighed. Seeing Mengyun and Gao Wanping reveal their true feelings, as well as the information they revealed in their excitement, Yu Haoran finally understood why Gao Wanping, who had merged with Ouyang Haoyu in his previous life, would choose to join the Emperor Qin Kingdom. He also finally understood why Gao Wanping would place his confidence in the Emperor Qin Kingdom and nurture his own forces. It turned out that all of this had to do with the fact that he had been a soldier in the Emperor Qin Kingdom and fought in wars. All right, let's not talk about the past. Let's talk about the present. Originally, he wanted to talk about the past with Mengyun further, but considering Yu Haoran's shrewdness and methods, the more he and Mengyun talked about, the more information they would reveal, and the more secrets he would be able to guess. In the end, there would be more information that would fall into his hands. Therefore, Gao Wanping took the initiative to break their memories. He then pointed at Yu Haoran and smiled as he introduced him to Mengyun. "Brother Mengyun, let me introduce you to this young hero, Masters Junior Gao. I have already introduced him to Lord Meng. You don't have to do this." Seeing that Gao Wanping was about to introduce him again, Yu Haoran quickly hinted. How could Yu Haoran not know what Gao Wanping was planning? It was nothing more than praising him excessively to attract Meng Yun's attention. Then, he would let the people of the Emperor Qin Kingdom pay more attention to him, so that he could carry out his plans in secret. I have already introduced him. After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, Gao Wanping said with a hint of disappointment, "Vice Sect Leader Yu, Peak Lord, is getting late. Follow me to the Qingyuan Guild Hall. That will be the temporary residence of the distinguished guests attending the Qin Alliance Conference." As a military advisor, he was best at observing people's expressions. Just now, Yu Haoran and Gao Wanping's seemingly unintentional conversation allowed Meng Yun to see that there was a secret battle between the two of them. While lamenting that his good friend's wisdom was not inferior to that of the past, he also developed a strong interest in the young Yu Haoran. However, the sun was setting in the west, and the sky was gradually darkening. Arranging for Yu Haoran and the rest to stay as soon as possible was the most important matter. Therefore, Meng Yun reminded them, "Sorry to trouble you, Lord Meng." After saying politely, Yu Haoran followed behind Meng Yun and entered Xianyang City. Yu Shi Xiang, the spirit qi in Xianyang City, is so dense. Just as he stepped into Xianyang City, Wu Jingjun, who was unwilling to stop cultivating even though he was in a hurry, immediately felt the dense spirit qi of heaven and earth in the city. He could not help but ask in shock when he thought of the hundreds of thousands of square kilometers of Xianyang City that he could see from the sky. After all, to fill Xianyang City, which covered an area of hundreds of thousands of square kilometers, with dense spiritual qi, the consumption of spiritual qi was extremely terrifying. Moreover, as the imperial capital, Xianyang City had a population of nearly 10 million people. With such a large base number, the consumption of spirit qi was probably an astronomical figure. Moreover, Xianyang City was a city that was open to the public and did not limit the number of people who could enter. Hundreds of thousands of people entered and exited every day. This would probably be a huge burden to the consumption of spirit qi in the city. Therefore, Wu Zhangjun really did not understand why the Emperor Qin Empire did this. Zhangjun, although the spirit qi is dense, all the spirit qi in the city has been sealed by a formation. If you want to absorb the spirit qi in the city, you must either have a residence designated by the empire or stay in a designated restaurant or inn. Indicating that Wu Zhangjun did not need to be shocked, Yu Haoran explained the situation in Xianyang City in detail. Otherwise, don't even think about absorbing a little bit of spirit qi. That's really the case. Using his mental cultivation method to guide a trace of spirit qi around him, Wu Zhangjun found that the situation was just as Yu Haoran had explained. He could not guide spirit qi into his body at all. Hearing Yu Haoran's understanding of the spirit qi in the city, Meng Yun turned his head to look at Gao Wanping, a trace of confusion flashing in his eyes. Because from the secret confrontation between the two outside the city gate just now, the relationship between Yu Haoran and Gao Wanping was not very harmonious. If that was the case, then why would Gao Wanping tell Yu Haoran about the situation in Xianyang City? After all, disciples of Yu Haoran's age would basically always stay in the sect. Even if they went out to train, most of them would be within the sect's sphere of influence. And the 100 Qi Gate was hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from the Emperor Qin Empire. It would be very difficult for Yu Haoran to come into contact with Xianyang City. Chapter 521. Inside Xianyang City, the Qingyuan Guild Hall was located in the southern part of the imperial city. It was an extremely vast mansion. In front of the mansion, there was a tall and imposing gate. On both sides of the gate, there was a pair of extremely realistic and mighty stonemasons. At the top of the Vermilion Gate, which symbolized the festive occasion, there were golden words on a red background that read, Qingyuan Guild Hall. In Xianyang City, the places that were named Guild Hall were all places run by the government. Vice Sect Master Yu, Peak Lord, please. Meng Yun gestured as he pushed open the gate of the Guild Hall. Lord Meng, please. Yu Haoran said politely. Just as Yu Haoran was about to step into the guild hall, a burst of mocking and ridiculing came from behind him. It can't be right. Could it be that Ai Yang was mistaken? Didn't the 100 Qi Gate claim that they would never step into the capital of the Emperor Qin's kingdom? Even if they did, they would destroy the Emperor Qin's kingdom and stand in Xianyang City as the victors. Could it be that these people are pretending to be the thieves of the 100 Qi Gate? When Yu Haoran heard the mockery behind him, and even a hint of mockery that was trying to sow discord, he retracted his left leg and turned around to look. Then he saw a dozen people of different ages, temperaments, cultivation, genders. However, they all looked very similar. It was obvious that they were from the same clan. Martial nephew Yu, they are from the Yang clan of Xian country. The one who mocked us just now was the Yang clan's patriarch, Yang Hongze. His cultivation is already at the peak of 6th grade martial king. Seeing Yu Haoran frown, Gao Wanping knew that he didn't recognize this group of people, so he took the initiative to introduce them. What grudges do you have with our 100 Qi Gate? They had just met, yet they mocked him without regard for the occasion. They must have a deep grudge against the 100 Qi Gate, so Yu Haoran asked. The Xian country where the Yang clan is located is only a few dozen li away from the Star Town sect of our 100 Qi Gate. The two sides have been fighting for territory for no less than 100 years. 15 years ago, because of an accidental discovery of a mine, the Yang family instigated the entire Xian country to declare war on the Xingzhen sect. As a subsidiary force, our 100 Qi Gate naturally has to send experts to help. Xian country can only be regarded as a top third-rate force. How could it be a match for our 100 Qi Gate? If it weren't for the Qingchang sect's intervention, we would have almost destroyed Xian country. And in that fierce conflict, the Yang clan had a total of 2 martial emperors and 11 martial kings who died at the hands of our 100 Qi Gate's experts. That's why the Yang clan is so hostile towards our 100 Qi Gate. Oh. Nodding, Yu Haoran finally understood why the other party hated the 100 Qi Gate so much. At the same time, he couldn't help but glance at Gao Wanping. Chapter 5:22. Xianyang City, in front of the Qingyuan Guild Hall. Lord Meng, to tell you the truth, I, Yu Haoran, will not apologize to the Yang clan. Moreover, my threat just now was not a joke. At this point, Yu Haoran's gaze landed on the Yang clan members and finally on the young girl who had taken the initiative to complain. His voice was cold and emotionless as he threatened. The day I return to the 100 Qi Gate will be the day our 100 Qi Gate mobilizes troops to exterminate Xian country and massacre the Yang clan. Little girl, don't doubt my determination just now. Because I, Yu Haoran, am a man of my word. After leaving behind a series of threatening words, Yu Haoran acted as if he didn't see the young girl's pale face and directly turned to walk into the Qingyuan Guild Hall. Halt! However, at this moment, Lord Wu, who had just thrown the difficult problem to Meng Yun, reprimanded with a frosty expression. What is it? If it weren't for the fact that the other party was still an official of the Emperor Qin Kingdom, Yu Haoran, who was in a bad mood, would have directly ordered Black Bear to exterminate the other party with his impolite reprimand. Kneel and apologize, Lord Wu coldly ordered as he pointed at Yang Hongze, who had been smashed into a meat patty. Are you sure? Yu Haoran asked back with a face full of astonishment. Black Bear, who was following beside him, directly activated the demonic energy within his body, striving to be able to directly smash the other party into a meat patty at the same time as Yu Haoran's order. I'm very sure, Lord Wu said without the slightest fear as he nodded his head heavily. Vice Sec Leader Yu, please reconsider. Meng Yun, who was only a meter away from Yu Haoran and Black Bear, clearly felt the killing intent that rose from Yu Haoran's body in an instant, as well as the demonic energy that Black Bear secretly mobilized. He knew that the lawless Yu Haoran was not afraid of anyone's threats. Not to mention that Lord Wu was just an ordinary official from the Ministry of Rights. Even if he was an important member of the Grand Council, Meng Yun would definitely not put him in his eyes. He would probably directly kill him. Black Bear, Yu Haoran shouted as he smiled warmly at Meng Yun. Boom! Under the incredulous gazes of the crowd, Lord Wu, who they thought would absolutely not dare to attack, was also smashed into a meat patty by Black Bear. As for the little girl who was only a meter away from Lord Wu, she was so frightened by Yu Haoran's ruthlessness and the Black Bear's ferocious attack that she screamed. As for the other members of the Yang family, they seemed to have been scared silly, standing there in a daze. Ignoring the Yang family's young lady's shriek, Yu Haoran strode into the Clear Source Guild Hall. Meng Yun and Gao Wanping looked at each other and saw the helplessness and fear in each other's eyes. The Qingyuan Guild Hall was divided into hundreds of independent courtyards. The buildings and scenery of each courtyard were different. It was obvious that they were prepared for guests with different habits. Just from this point alone, one could see the strength and means of the Emperor Qin's kingdom. Deputy Sect Leader Yu, before the Qin Alliance meeting begins, you should not leave the Qingyuan Guild Hall. Otherwise, the Qingchang sect and the Ministry of Rites will definitely not let you go. Yu Haoran's actions just now seemed lawless. In fact, it was a cultivation method that was more suitable for martial artists to press forward without fear. Only with the courage to press forward could one continuously break through the bottleneck of the realm and reach a higher realm. Therefore, although Yu Haoran did not give him any face just now, Meng Yin did not hate him in his heart. Instead, he appreciated him even more and kindly reminded him, "Lord Meng, I'm really sorry just now." Yu Haoran could feel that Meng Yun was sincerely good to him. He was not an unreasonable person. Therefore, he said with guilt, "My weakness is that I'm too impulsive. When I'm angry, I don't recognize anyone. Please don't blame me." Why would I? Meng Yun waved his hand and laughed. "Deputy Sect Leader Yu, from what I know, you're a person who likes peace and quiet. Therefore, this Qingya Pavilion will be your temporary courtyard during the Qin Alliance meeting." After passing through 3 courtyards and 5 corridors, they finally arrived at a courtyard filled with green bamboo. Meng Yin reached out and pushed open the courtyard door. He pointed at the green bamboo and introduced, "Lord Meng, I really like this courtyard. Thank you for the trouble." Yu Haoran nodded his head in satisfaction and said politely, "Deputy Sect Leader Yu, I still have some matters to attend to. I'll take my leave for now." Meng Yin secretly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Yu Haoran was satisfied with the courtyard he had arranged. He then said goodbye. "Uncle Master Gao, since you've been friends with Lord Meng for many years, I'll have to trouble you to send him off." Yu Haoran turned around and instructed Gao Wanping. "Sure." Gao Wanping nodded his head and left the Qingya Pavilion with Meng Yun side by side. Yu Haoran instructed Wu Jingjun as they stepped into the courtyard. "Zhengjun, go and choose a room. Stay in the courtyard for the time being." Wu Jingjun nodded his head and went straight to the room on the west side of the courtyard. After Wu Jingjun had chosen his room, Yu Haoran asked He Xiong, "He Xiong, your cultivation has reached the peak of the 5th stage, 9th level. How much longer do you need to advance to the 4th stage, Saint Realm?" "If I have enough spiritual stones, I'll be able to advance to the 4th stage, Saint Realm, in half a year or at most a year," He Xiong said gratefully. After all, before he followed Yu Haoran, he would need at least 8 to 10 years to advance to the 5th stage, 9th level, let alone advance to the 4th stage, 9th level. But now, in less than 2 months, he had already reached the peak of the 5th stage, 9th level in advance, since Yu Haoran did not care about the consumption of spiritual stones. Too slow. Yu Haoran shook his head in dissatisfaction. He took out a 4th stage, 1st rank spiritual stone from his storage ring and tossed it to He Xiong. "He Xiong, if you use a 4th stage, 1st rank spiritual stone, will it speed up your advancement to the 4th stage, Saint Realm?" He Xiong used his spirit to carefully sense the spiritual energy in the spiritual stone. He was completely stunned by the purity and quantity of the spiritual energy in the spiritual stone and did not reply to Yu Haoran for a long time. Ahem. He Xiong only reacted when he heard Yu Haoran's light cough. He replied, according to the purity and quantity of the spiritual energy in the spiritual stone and his own condition. "Master, If I have 10 spiritual stones of this quality and 1,000 sixth-stage first-rank spiritual stones, I'll be able to advance to the 4th stage, Saint Realm, in about a month. Yu Haoran sighed softly and took out 9 4th-stage first-rank spiritual stones and 1,000 sixth-stage first-rank spiritual stones. He tossed them to He Xiong and gestured for him to hurry up and cultivate. Chapter 523. Xianyang City, Qingyuan Guild Hall. No, Yu Haoran, never regret anything I do. Yu Haoran replied firmly in the face of the Tower Genie's concern. Even if it was Meng Yun, the prince of the Emperor Qin's kingdom, who provoked me, I would still kill him, not to mention the Wu guy. However, his tone changed, and he said helplessly, "However, I didn't expect that I would provoke the Ministry of Rites, which is famous for its evil deeds, as soon as I arrived at Xianyang City. I just feel unhappy about it." Yu Haoran, let me tell you a piece of good news. Although Yu Haoran said that he was just unhappy and didn't feel any pressure, Thowling understood Yu Haoran's character. How could he not see the heavy pressure he was under now? At this moment, any persuasion or comfort would not be as effective as a direct counterattack. With the help of the Earth Soul Flower protected by the single-horned blue rhinoceros bull, my spirit has recovered to the peak of the middle stage of martial revered realm. At most, it will take a day to recover to the peak of martial revered realm. As long as my spirit can recover to the peak of martial revered realm, I can use the body possession technique to not only let you display the strength of peak 9th grade martial saint, but also let no one see any clues, and my existence will not be exposed. Really, without exposing the existence of the pagoda spirit, Yu Haoran could exert the strength of a peak 9th grade martial saint through the possession technique. The good news that the pagoda spirit told him caused Yu Haoran to be pleasantly surprised as he further confirmed it. Absolutely, Thowling confirmed with a nod. Phew! After receiving Thowling's confirmation, Yu Haoran immediately felt that the burden on his shoulders had been lifted. He couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. However, the body possession technique was only an auxiliary technique. If he wanted to be able to be unafraid of anyone in the future, it would depend on his own ability. Therefore, Yu Haoran, who had put down the heavy burden on his shoulders, chose a room in the east wing. After he sat cross-legged on the bed, he used the spirit stones and elixirs to raise his cultivation to the 10th grade of Martial Master. He wanted to be able to reach the Martial Ancestor realm directly after he returned to the 100 Feet sect. He wanted to be able to practice the secret technique that defied the natural order. Eastern city of Xianyang, in the residence of Qin Jichong, the assistant minister of the Ministry of Rites. Qin Jichong, who had just finished discussing some matters to take note of during the Qin Alliance meeting with the high officials of the 6 divisions, returned to the residence with an exhausted expression. Before he could return to his bedroom to take a sip of hot tea, he was stopped by Steward Yuan in the residence. "Sir, something has happened," Manager Yuan said with a panicked expression. "What's the rush?" If it weren't for the fact that Steward Yuan grew up with him and was regarded as his absolute confidant, he would have kicked Steward Yuan away with his panicked look just now. The sky is still the sky of the Tianxian continent, and the earth is still the land of the great Emperor Qin. Since the sky hasn't collapsed and the earth hasn't sunk, why are you panicking? "Sir, I just received news from the Right Assistant Minister. Vice Manager Wu of the Ministry of Rites was killed on the street by Yu Haoran, the vice leader of the 100 Qi Gate, who had just arrived in Xianyang City. Perhaps it was Qin Jichong's calm actions that caused the panicked manager to gradually calm down. Then, he told Qin Jichong the news he had just received in full detail. Manager Yuan, don't joke with me. Ever since the Great Qin Empire had become the overlord of this territory, in Xianyang City, all the officials of the functional departments had been executed unless they were personally ordered by the Emperor or investigated by the Ministry of Justice. Nowadays, it was very rare for an official to be assassinated, let alone killed on the street in front of so many people. Therefore, Qin Jichong mistakenly thought that Manager Yuan was joking with him. "Sir, I wouldn't dare to joke about such things," Manager Yuan said with a bitter smile. "Is this true?" Seeing his trusted aide's bitter smile, Qin Jicheng couldn't help but be alarmed and hurriedly asked, "Sir, the messenger sent by the left assistant minister of the Ministry of Rites is currently waiting in the reception hall." Seeing that his lord still didn't dare to believe it, Manager Yuan could only have Qin Jicheng personally receive him. Originally, it wasn't for someone of his status to receive him. Bring me there quickly. At this moment, identity and status were no longer important in Qin Jicheng's eyes. The most important thing was that the vice leader of the 100 Qi Gate had killed an official of the Ministry of Rites on the street. If this matter was true, then it would cause an unimaginable commotion in Xianyang City. To their Ministry of Rites, this was an unavoidable calamity. Qingyuan Guild Hall, Qingya Pavilion. Sitting cross-legged on his bed, Yu Haoran didn't know that because he had killed an official of the Ministry of Rites in a moment of anger, undercurrents were surging in Xianyang City, which had been peaceful for many years. Regardless of whether it was the Ministry of Rites, the Ministry of Military Personnel, the Ministry of Personnel, the Grand Council, the Six Temples, or the leaders of other important departments with authority, they all moved out to discuss the implications of this matter. An uneventful night. The morning sun shone through the window into the room. Yu Haoran, who was sitting cross-legged on his bed, slowly opened his eyes and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air that could be seen with the naked eye. With the help of top-notch pills and high-quality spirit stones, a night of cultivation had raised his cultivation by a small amount. According to his current cultivation progress, by the time the Qin Alliance Conference ended and he returned to the 100 Qi Gate, he would definitely be able to raise his cultivation and physical body to the limit of peak perfection. Finishing his cultivation, Yu Haoran got off the bed and tidied up a little. Then, he pushed open the door and left the room. "Black Bear!" Yu Haoran called out to the black bear, who was sleeping soundly under the windowsill while relying on its body to absorb the spirit qi in the spirit stones. He planned to leave the Pure Source Guild Hall and take a stroll in Xianyang City. After all, he had stayed in Xianyang City for a period of time in his previous life. There were a few places that were worth reminiscing about, and he wanted to revisit them. There were a few enemies from his previous life that he wanted to get rid of in advance. However, just as Yu Haoran reached the gate of the courtyard, Gao Wanping's grumbling voice came from behind him. "Yu Haoran, can you stay in the Qingyuan Guild Hall for a few days?" "Martial Uncle Gao, I'm just going out for a walk. I'm not going to cause trouble on purpose." Yu Haoran also complained, feeling wronged. Slowly walking in front of Yu Haoran, Gao Wanping pulled a long face and begged. "Martial Nephew Yu, Vice Sect Leader Yu, Ancestor Yu, take it that I'm begging you. Can you not go out for a walk? Can you wait until the Qin Alliance Conference starts?" "Forget it." Seeing that Gao Wanping was even calling him Ancestor, Yu Haoran had to give him some face. Therefore, he turned around and returned to his room. He planned to wait for Gao Wanping to leave the courtyard and the Qingyuan Guild Hall before sneaking out. Seeing Yu Haoran turn around and return to his room, Gao Wanping secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 524. Qingyuan Guild Hall, Qingya Courtyard. Bang, bang, bang. After making up his mind, Gao Wanping turned around and was about to return to his room when someone knocked on the door of his courtyard. Could it be a good friend from the army who came to visit him after learning that he had come to Xianyang City? Gao Wanping thought to himself after hearing the knocking. After all, this was the first time that Yu Haoran and Wu Jingjun had come to Xianyang City. They would definitely not be familiar with anyone in Xianyang City. Thinking of this, Gao Wanping hurriedly turned around and opened the courtyard door excitedly. "What's the matter?" Gao Wanping asked with disappointment when he saw that the person knocking on the door was only a staff member of the Qingyuan Guild Hall. "Sir, there is someone outside the Guild Hall who claims to be from the 100 Qi Gate. He said that he is also an envoy who came to participate in the Qin Alliance Conference," the staff member hurriedly said when he saw that Gao Wanping was very disappointed. "Let him in." Other than Gong Yiyuan, who had camped outside Xianyang City yesterday, there was no one else who could find the 100 Qi Gate at this time. Therefore, Gao Wanping did not ask who it was and directly signaled for the staff member to bring him in. However, the staff member did not turn around to bring Gong Yiyuan in. Instead, he kept looking at Gao Wanping. "Is there anything else?" Gao Wanping asked in confusion when he saw that the staff member was unwilling to leave. Sir, please show me the token of the envoy so that I can complete the registration. The staff member gestured with his hand. Wait a moment. After hearing the staff member's reminder, Gao Wanping suddenly remembered that if he wanted to receive late disciples or participants, he had to be the envoy with the invitation token of the conference. The deputy envoy did not have the right to decide whether to receive late participants or not. Gao Wanping signaled the staff member to wait a moment and walked toward Yu Haoran's room. Martial Uncle Gao, I just had an epiphany and am at a critical moment. I cannot see you for the time being. Just as Gao Wanping reached Yu Haoran's room and was about to knock on the door, Yu Haoran's voice came from inside the room. Epiphany. After hearing Yu Haoran's answer, Gao Wanping almost laughed out loud. From the time he was stopped from leaving the guild hall to the arrival of the guild hall staff, less than 2 minutes had passed. Even if he was a reincarnated immortal, it was impossible for him to have an epiphany in such a short time. Yu Haoran did this to take revenge on Gong Yuyuan. Martial nephew Yu, can't you be a little more open-minded? Can you be a little more magnanimous in your actions? Gao Wanping advised. Yu Haoran's contemptuous laughter came from the room. Martial niece Yu, no matter what, you were the one who requested for Martial niece Gong to be one of the vice envoys to attend the meeting. Yu Haoran's contemptuous laughter made Gao Wanping aware of his attitude. However, as an elder, he couldn't sit idly by and continue to persuade him. Now, what is the meaning of you leaving Yu Yuan outside the hall? How will others view you? How will they view our 100-Chi gate? Martial Uncle Gao, am I, Yu Haoran, someone who cares about other people's opinions? Yu Haoran asked with a cold smile in the room. Yes, you don't care, but your martial uncle do. Facing Yu Haoran's cold question, Gao Wanping could only continue to persuade him with a bitter smile. Martial nephew Yu, can you give martial niece Gong some face and let him in? I can let Gong Yuyuan in, but you have to let me out. Facing Gao Wanping's bitter help, Yu Haoran began to raise his own request. Originally, he had planned to wait for Gao Wanping to leave the Qing Yuan Guild Hall before sneaking out himself. However, just as he returned to his room, he suddenly remembered something very important. As one of the 3 major chambers of commerce in the profound sky continent, the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion would be holding an auction today. An auction that would shake the entire profound sky continent. Although he was still a martial disciple when the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion held the auction in his previous life, he was still a disciple of the martial disciple realm. He was still diligently cultivating at the Clear Cloud Peak and did not personally witness the grand occasion of the auction. However, when he went out to train later, he heard more than once about the entire process of the auction in detail. It was also because of this successful auction that the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion suppressed the other 2 major chambers of commerce and became the #1 chamber of commerce in the profound sky continent. Therefore, when he heard that Gong Yuan had come, Yu Haoran used his own pettiness to negotiate with Gao Wanping. Martial nephew Yu, it's not that I don't want you to go out, but before Master Meng left yesterday, he specifically told me to advise you not to leave the Qing Yuan Guild Hall. Because the Yang clan has already secretly sided with the Qingchang sect, and Master Wu is the confidant of the left assistant minister of the Ministry of Rights. You have offended both the Qingchang sect and the left assistant minister of the Ministry of Rights. If you leave the Qing Yuan Guild Hall rashly, it is very likely that you will suffer the revenge of these 2 powers. Seeing that Yu Haoran was still unwilling to give up and wanted to go out, Gao Wanping could only bring up the threat of the Qingchang sect and the Ministry of Rights, hoping that he would back down. However, Gao Wanping forgot that Yu Haoran was not a person who would be scared off by threats. Martial Uncle Gao, my request is very simple. If I go out, Gong Yuyuan will come in. If I can't go out, Gong Yuyuan can't come in either. Yu Haoran directly expressed his attitude. Seeing that Yu Haoran was not afraid of the threat of the Qingchang sect and the Ministry of Rights and was determined to go out no matter what, Gao Wanping was refuted to the point that he could not say a word. Then he thought about how he, as the peak master of the law enforcement peak and the elder of Yu Haoran and Gong Yuyuan, might have a high position in the future and become a top expert who could affect the situation of the continent. Now, he was pleading with a junior. Moreover, this junior did not appreciate his kindness at all, which made Gao Wamping feel uncomfortable and angry. Yu Haoran, do whatever you want, do whatever you want. I, Gao Wamping, will not serve you from now on. Gao Wamping faced his own thoughts and intended to be a hands-off shopkeeper. After leaving his opinion angrily, he directly left the courtyard and the hall to meet his old friend. Seeing that Gao Wamping left in anger, Yu Haoran did not care at all. After opening the door of the room, he went directly to the gate of the courtyard. From the storage ring, he took out the purple token that was sent to the 100 Chi gate together with the invitation and handed it directly to the staff of the hall. I'll go and invite that lord in now. Reaching out to take the purple token handed over by Yu Haoran, the staff of the hall checked its authenticity and quickly said respectfully, "Wait." Calling out to the staff of the hall, Yu Haoran thought for a moment and then asked, "Staff, is there a back door in our hall?" "Yes." Nodding, the staff of the hall replied, "Here." From the storage ring, he took out 3 spiritual stones of the 1st grade of the 7th level and directly stuffed them into the staff's hand, and then whispered in his ear, "Staff, later on you." "Okay." After listening to Yu Haoran's instructions, the staff of the hall glanced at the 3 spiritual stones of the 1st grade of the 7th level in his hand and could only agree with a wry smile. Go ahead. Chapter 525. Xianyang City, in front of the Qingyuan Guild Hall. The exhausted Gong Yuyuan stared expectantly at the vermilion door of the guild hall, waiting for the staff to lead him into the guild hall so that he could have a good night's sleep and get rid of the exhaustion in his mind. In fact, Gong Yuyuan was filled with regret at this moment. He regretted not listening to Gao Wanping's suggestion yesterday and following Yu Haoran into Xianyang City to enter the Qingyuan Guild Hall specially arranged by the state of Qin. Because just half an hour after Meng Yun led Yu Haoran and the others into the city, Xianyang City began to close the city gate, forbidding anyone from passing through. No matter how hard he begged, revealed his identity, and even used spirit stones and elixirs as bribes, the soldiers guarding the city did not let him enter the city. In desperation, he could only temporarily sleep outside the city. The Great Qin Empire was founded on martial arts and ruled by killing. As the capital city, Xianyang City had killed millions of people before it was established. During the day, Xianyang City was mighty and spectacular. At night, outside Xianyang City, it was gloomy and terrifying. Some vengeful spirits that had not dispersed for a long time were shouting and screaming. Although martial artists were not afraid of vengeful spirits, because they absorbed the spiritual qi of heaven and earth into their bodies, the vengeful spirits that died outside Weiyang City were all experts who had cultivated successfully before they died. It was impossible to block out their cries and screams. In such an environment, it was impossible to meditate and rest, let alone sleep peacefully. This caused Gong Yuyuan to be in a state of tension all night. If he did not have a treasure that could calm his qi and concentrate his mind, he would have been driven crazy by the screams of those vengeful spirits. Therefore, as soon as the city gate opened at dawn, he was the first to rush into the city and knew the exact location of the Qingyuan Guild Hall from the soldiers guarding the city. Creak! As the vermilion door of the guild hall slowly opened, the anticipation on Gong Yuyuan's face was immediately replaced by joy. "I'm really sorry. Your 100 Chi Gates, Envoy, and Deputy Gate Master left the guild hall early in the morning. According to the rules of our Qingyuan Guild Hall, I can't let you in for the time being without the permission of your envoy." Unfortunately, the joy that had just replaced his expectations was quickly replaced by anger following the explanation of the clubhouse staff. Although Yu Haoran was protected by the laws of the heavenly Tao and could not use the art of deduction to calculate his fate, Gong Yuyuan could calculate Wu Zhengjuan's fate to determine his current position. While he was waiting, he had already used his deduction technique to calculate Wu Zhengjuan's fate. He knew that Yu Haoran was currently in the hall. Yu Haoran was clearly taking revenge on him. How could Gong Yuan not feel enraged? Since he was in the guild hall, Yu Haoran had asked the guild hall staff to tell him that he wasn't around. But under the eaves, he had no choice but to lower his head. Gong Yuan took a deep breath and forcibly suppressed the anger in his heart. Then, he took out an 8th grade spirit stone, intending to bribe the staff of the club to pass a message to Yu Haoran to express his attitude of admitting defeat and admitting defeat. But what Gong Yuan did not expect was that before he took out the spirit stone, the staff of the club had been relatively polite to him. But when he saw that he had taken out an 8th grade spirit stone, his face suddenly fell. He turned and entered the guild hall, slamming the scarlet door shut. This, Gong Yuan stared blankly at the scarlet door, not knowing what he had done wrong. According to the route provided by the staff of the club, Yu Haoran quietly left the Qingyuan Guild Hall through the back door. After passing through 3 narrow alleys and about to appear on the main street, Thowling suddenly reminded him. Yu Haoran, wait a moment. Thowling, what's the matter? Yu Haoran stopped and asked. There are people outside monitoring this place. Among them, there are 2 people whose auras are very similar to that of Lord Wu that Black Bear killed yesterday. They should be cultivating the same kind of cultivation method, the tower spirit explained after using divine sense to observe carefully. After hearing Thowling's explanation, Yu Haoran thought for a moment, then took out 2 gray-colored pills from the storage ring. He crushed one of them and smeared it directly on his face and swallowed the other one. In just 5 seconds, Yu Haoran changed from an extraordinary young man to a weak middle-aged man. After completely changing his appearance, temperament, and aura, Yu Haoran was about to step out of the alley when he suddenly thought of Black Bear behind him. He immediately turned around and asked, Black Bear, what is the limit of your body size that you can control now? Let me try. Due to the environment in which he lived, Black Bear had never really tried to change his body size to the limit. Therefore, in the face of Yu Haoran's interrogation, he could only confirm it through an on-site experiment. Black Bear closed his eyes, controlled the monster energy in his dantian and the soul in his sea of consciousness, and began to control his body size. The body that was originally more than 2 meters tall began to shrink gradually. 1.5 meters, 1.5 meters, 1 meter, 80 centimeters. Under the dual control of monster energy and soul, Black Bear quickly shrank from more than 2 meters tall to 20 centimeters. Master, is this okay? Black Bear that had shrunk to the size of a mini black bear lost its heavy tone and asked in a delicate voice, Can you shrink a little more? Shaking his head, Yu Haoran was not satisfied and motioned for Black Bear to continue shrinking. When Black Bear had shrunk to 9 centimeters, he shook his head and said to Yu Haoran, Master, my body size has reached the limit. I can't shrink anymore. Okay. Seeing Black Bear that had shrunk to 9 centimeters, Yu Haoran nodded with satisfaction, then raised his left arm and ordered Black Bear, Stay in my sleeve for the time being. After Black Bear scurried into his sleeve, Yu Haoran slowly left the alley, and with Thowling's reminder, he used his peripheral vision to observe the 2 people monitoring the exit of the alley. Thowling determined that these 2 people came from the same place as Lord Wu, who was killed by Black Bear yesterday. Yu Haoran, on the other hand, determined that these 2 people came from the Ministry of Rites through their temperament. Thinking of how Gao Wanping deliberately mentioned that the Qingqing sect and the Ministry of Rites would secretly take revenge on him in order to prevent him from leaving the Qingyuan Guild Hall, Yu Haoran quickly withdrew his peripheral vision to avoid alerting the other party. Then he slowly entered the street and gradually blended into the flow of people from the south. Hidden Art Pavilion, Qingyuan Guild Hall, and Taste of Clouds were the 3 famous shops in Xianyang City. Among them, the overall layout of Hidden Art Pavilion was very similar to that of the Qingyuan Guild Hall. The entire pavilion was divided into hundreds of courtyards of different styles. However, there was a slight difference between Hidden Art Pavilion and Qingyuan Guild Hall. In the center of Hidden Art Pavilion, there's a very simple building that occupied a much larger area than the other courtyards. Chapter 5:26. In Xianyang City, using the flow of people from the south to the north, Yuharan avoided the surveillance of the experts from the Ministry of Rites and hid in a dark and secluded alley when no one was paying attention. Using Yuan Li to remove the changes in his appearance and aura caused by the elixir, he returned to the crowd on the street. According to his memories from his previous life, he went straight to the Hidden Art Loft, where the auction was going to be held. Unlike the Qing Yuan Guild Hall, the Hidden Art Loft, which was famous in Xianyang City, was very popular. Whether it was from the south or the north, as long as they were wealthy gentlemen, they would stay at the Hidden Art Loft. Of course, most of the people who stayed there were those martial arts giants who had hidden their auras and had unfathomable levels of cultivation. When Yu Haoran arrived at the Hidden Art Loft, the already popular Hidden Art Loft was now bustling with people and carriages. Some of them were rich and famous. Some of them were famous martial arts masters, and some of them were overlords. Under the guidance of the 20 or so workers that the Hidden Art Loft had prepared in advance, Ling Yun stepped into the Hidden Art Loft. Standing 50 meters away from the Hidden Art Loft, Yu Haoran used his spiritual sense to organize the collection in his storage ring. He moved all the treasures that were useless to him and a large number of 7th level and below spirit stones into the storage bracelet. After everything was ready, Yu Haoran walked towards the Hidden Art Loft's vermilion door. Stop! Just as Yu Haoran arrived at the Hidden Art Loft door and was about to step onto the stairs, a worker who was at the peak of 9th level martial ancestors shouted at him. Stopping his steps and looking at the worker who shouted at him, Yu Haoran's face gradually darkened. His gaze was gradually replaced by a condescending one. I'm sorry, the Hidden Art Loft is not open to guests today. If you want to stay at the Hidden Art Loft, you can come back tomorrow. Even though Yu Haoran was young, the calmness that he exuded and the feeling of being superior was not something that could be faked. Therefore, the originally unfriendly Hidden Art Pavilion employee immediately put on a smile and explained. What a snob! Yu Haoran sneered and cursed at the Hidden Art Pavilion staff, whose attitude had changed in an instant. Then he took out 3 7th-tier, first-grade spirit stones and tossed them to the shop assistant. This young master had just found out that the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion was going to hold an auction in the Hidden Elegance Loft 2 days ago, so I rushed over excitedly. You're just a lowly slave. Don't spoil this young master's elegance. Now, young master has arranged 2 things for you. Reaching out to catch the spirit stone that Yu Haoran had thrown over, he gave it a cursory glance and discovered that it was a 7th-grade, first-grade spirit stone. The Hidden Art Pavilion staff was immediately overjoyed. Not only did he not take Yu Haoran's insults to heart, he even acted like a servant and served him carefully. Young master, please give your orders. First, help this young master get a certificate to participate in the auction. At this point, Yu Haoran directly showed the Hidden Art Pavilion's staff the number of spirit stones in the storage bracelet on his wrist. Young master, don't worry. I'll get it done for you in a moment. It definitely won't delay your participation in the auction. The Hidden Art Pavilion staff's cultivation was already at the peak of a 9th-grade martial great master. He only needed to use his mental strength to scan the bracelet, and he would know the number of spirit stones in the storage bracelet. Based on the number and quality of the spirit stones that Yu Haoran had just revealed, most of the items in this auction would be auctioned off by this mysterious youth before him. Therefore, the Hidden Art Pavilion staff smiled and promised him. Second, help me meet the appraiser of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. I have a few items that I need to appraise and auction. Yu Haoran was very satisfied with the Hidden Art Pavilion staff's performance. He directly took out 3 7th-tier, 9th-grade spirit stones and tossed them to him before stating his second request. No problem. I'll bring you to see Master Fengyan now. Seeing that the generous Yu Haoran had actually rewarded him with 7th-tier, 9th-grade spirit stones, the Hidden Art Pavilion staff smile became even worse and his attitude became even more flattering. Under the guidance of the Hidden Art Pavilion staff, Yu Haoran quickly arrived at the center of the Hidden Art Pavilion. Although it was only a 1-story building, it was nearly 20 meters tall in front of the auction house. However, Yu Haoran did not immediately enter the auction house. Instead, he was led by the staff around the main entrance and arrived at a secret door on the west side. The Hidden Art Pavilion staff gently knocked on the secret door. Immediately after, the secret door opened slightly and a pretty girl of about 16 or 17 years old poked her head out and asked, "Wu Yuan, what's the matter?" "Sister Qiao, I have a guest here who wants elder phone to appraise some treasures." The staff called Wu Yuan leaned to the right and revealed Yu Haoran behind him. He had a fawning expression as he spoke. "Got it." Nodding her head, the girl called Sister Qiao retracted her head and opened the secret door, indicating that Yu Haoran could enter. "Young master, I'll wait for you here after I help you with the auction house's certificate." Wu Yuan reminded Yu Haoran, who was about to step into the secret door. Yu Haoran paused his steps, took out 3 6th-grade spirit stones, and threw them directly to Wu Yuan. "Do your best to help this young master get a private room." Wu Yuan was a little hesitant when he heard Yu Haoran's new request. There were not many private rooms in the Hidden Art Pavilion. Most of them were given to high-ranking officials and Wu Dao grandmasters in advance. There were not many private rooms left in the Hidden Art Pavilion. With Wu Yuan's ability, he could not get one for Yu Haoran at the moment. However, when he discovered that Yu Haoran's spirit stone was actually a 6th-grade, 1st-grade spirit stone, he immediately became confident and promised, "Young master, don't worry. I'll definitely get it for you." Looking at Wu Yuan, who left excitedly, Yu Haoran chuckled and stepped into the secret door. Through the secret door, Yu Haoran found that he seemed to have entered a shop. The decoration in the room was very simple. There was a counter and a high chair, just like the shops on the street. According to the rules of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, the appraisal fee is 1% of the value of the appraisal item. Just when Yu Haoran was looking at the decoration of the room, an old man behind the counter suddenly reminded him, "I know the rules." Glancing at the old man behind the counter, Yu Haoran sat on the high chair with his butt raised. While responding to the old man's reminder, he swung his legs and took out the items he intended to trade and auction from his storage bracelet. The Gale Sword of the King's Domain, upper class. The market price is 1,700,000 8th-grade spirit stones. Picking up the first item Yu Haoran took out, the old man just glanced at it and directly told him the origin, grade, and value of the item. Chapter 527. Xianyang City, Hidden Art Loft. Yu Haoran nodded in agreement to the old man's appraisal and evaluation of the sword. He then asked for the price. Deducting 1% of the appraisal fee, the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion offers 1,400,000 1st-grade level 8 spirit stones. After a little calculation, the old man gave the final price of the deal. Without any hesitation, Yu Haoran agreed to the transaction price of 1.4 million. In his past life, Yu Haoran had done business with the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion more than once. He was well aware of their professional appraiser standards and believed that the price they offered was very reasonable. The Heavenly Fragrance would has the effect of calming one's qi and mind and preventing qi deviation. It's one of the top ingredients for making incense in the Tianxin continent. It's worth 2,220,000 1st-grade level 8 spirit stones. A trace of disgust flashed across Xiao Mei's face when she saw Yu Haoran take out a dried-up piece of rotten wood. However, when the old man gave the evaluation and value of the rotten wood, Xiao Mei's expression was immediately replaced by surprise. Yu Haoran looked up at the pretty Xiao Mei and chuckled. He then gestured to the old man. "What's the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion's price?" Deducting the appraisal fee, 2 million 1st-grade level 8 spirit stones. The old man gave a price. "Deal." Yu Haoran nodded in agreement without any hesitation. The blazing sword, which was a superior grade King's Domain, was worth 1,700,000. The Heavenly Fragrance wood, which could be made into a top spice, was worth 2,220,000. However, the final price difference was nearly 400,000 1st-grade level 8 spirit stones. In the face of such a high price difference, the young man in front of her, who was about the same age as her, didn't even frown and directly agreed to the deal. This made Sister Qiao have a strong interest in Haoran. A 1st-grade, level 6 blood coagulation pill. It can increase the bloodline purity of exotic beasts below the 5th rank by 1 to 6%. It's worth 3,400,000 1st-grade level 8 spirit stones. After opening the pill bottle that Yu Haoran placed on the counter and taking out the pill, the old man quickly gave the origin, quality, and price of the pill. However, Yu Haoran's reaction this time was out of the old man's and Sister Qiao's expectations. This was because he did not immediately inquire about the transaction price. Instead, he looked at the old man with a faint smile. Yu Haoran's inexplicable gaze made the old man feel very puzzled. His gaze could not help but return to the blood coagulation pill. His expression suddenly changed when he noticed that there was an extra, translucent crystal inside the blood-condensing pill. Then he closed his eyes and used his divine sense to slowly penetrate into the pill, carefully observing the small chip in the center of the pill. Young friend, this blood coagulation pill has actually been integrated with crystal marrow. The old man said to Yu Haoran in shock after checking and confirming with his divine sense. That's right. When I obtained this blood coagulation pill by accident, I did find that the pill was infused with crystal marrow from a high-grade, 5th-rank spirit vein. Yu Haoran nodded. Putting aside his relationship with the crystal marrow, he asked directly, "Senior, may I know the price of this blood coagulation pill that has been integrated with crystal marrow?" After closing his eyes and considering for a while, the old man put the blood coagulation pill back into the pill bottle and asked Yu Haoran solemnly, "Young friend, the blood coagulation pill that has been integrated with crystal marrow has basically surpassed the ranks of ordinary pills. Even for a 4th-rank Saint Realm exotic beast, it has the same bloodline purification effect of 30 to 60%. Moreover, an alchemy grandmaster who is proficient in the art of alchemy can refine the marrow crystal in the blood coagulation pill without damaging it. I can't give an accurate price for such a precious treasure. Therefore, I suggest that you entrust the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion to auction it. This way, the value of the blood coagulation pill that has been integrated with crystal marrow can be maximized." Yu Haoran did not think too much about the old man's suggestion. He nodded in agreement and directly asked the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion about the commission for the auction item. According to the rules of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, the commission for ordinary auction items is about 20%. However, this blood coagulation pill that has been integrated with an upper 5th-rank spiritual vein to produce crystal marrow will be of great help to the reputation of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion auction house. The old man, who had been prepared for Yu Haoran's inquiry, replied the old man, who had long been prepared. "Therefore, I can make the decision to only keep 10% of the commission for the auction item. What do you think?" "Deal." Yu Haoran agreed without hesitation. Subsequently, he continued to take out items that were of no use to him and handed them to the old man for appraisal. He then gave the old man a price for the transaction. Yu Haoran took out a total of 14 items, pills, celestial devices, and rare treasures. Among them, 11 items were traded on the spot, and he received 46,700,000 8th-rank, 1st-class spirit stones. The other 3 treasures were to be auctioned off, and the auctioneers would determine the true value of the 3 treasures. After the transaction, Yu Haoran jumped down from the high chair. However, he did not leave the room immediately. Instead, he kept looking at the old man. "Young friend, could it be that you still have some special treasures to be appraised?" Looking at Yu Haoran, who was unwilling to leave, the old man asked with a smile, "Senior, according to my understanding of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion would usually give out cards of different grades that allow one to enjoy different discounts, as well as cards that symbolize different statuses. Why can't I enjoy such treatment?" Yu Haoran asked, puzzled. In his previous life, when he first did business with the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, the price of the transaction was far less than 10% of today's transaction. However, after the transaction, he received a white card that allowed him to enjoy a 10% discount. Therefore, according to the usual practice of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, the old man in front of him should give him a green card that allowed him to enjoy a 20% discount. Cultivation, identity, and status. After the old man said this contemptuously, he gestured for Qiao Mei to see him out. Nodding his head, Yu Haoran's expression was calm. Without saying a word, he turned around and left the room through the secret door. Young hero, my grandfather didn't mean anything just now. Please don't misunderstand. Xiao Mei quickened her steps and hurriedly explained the old man's answer. Is it done? Ignoring Xiao Mei, who was explaining for the old man, Yu Haoran directly asked Wu Yuan, who was already waiting outside the secret door. It's done. Room 71. Nodding his head, Wu Yuan took out a pink token with the number 71 carved on it and replied with a smile. Not bad. After receiving the pink token, he casually tossed another 3 6th-tier first-grade spirit stones to Wu Yuan. Bring me to the room now. Yu Haoran gestured to Wu Yuan and turned his head to speak to Xiao Mei. Help me pass a message to your grandfather. It's better to bully a white-bearded old man than to bully a poor young man. There will be a day when the dragon will wear the phoenix. Chapter 528. Xianying City, Hidden Art Loft. Better to bully a white-bearded old man than a poor young man. There will be a day when the dragon will wear the phoenix. Sister Qiao's face gradually turned serious as she muttered the warning that Yu Haoran had left behind. Grandpa, what's wrong with you? The young man who had just made the deal was perfect in terms of temperament, demeanor, and way of doing things. Usually, Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion would receive customers with unlimited potential as VIPs. She couldn't understand why her grandfather, who had always been known for his sharp eyes, would look down on the young man. She stomped her foot and turned to enter the room through a secret door to question her grandfather. Young master, you don't need to be angry. Elder Feng has a bad temper. Not to mention you. Even if it was the vice pavilion master, he wouldn't give face to anyone. Seeing that Yu Haoran's mood wasn't as warm as before, Wu Yuan guessed that he must have been angered by the appraiser just now. Therefore, he tried to persuade him carefully. I'm fine. Yu Haoran shook his head and said. Actually, he had his own reasons for asking for a discounted card. Firstly, he had made a large deal this time. If he could get a discounted token, even if it was the lowest grade card, he could get at least 1 million more spiritual stones, which would help him in the upcoming auction. Secondly, as Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion's influence grew in the future, a token that symbolized identity and status could sometimes play an unexpected role. Thirdly, he wanted to use the transaction just now to calculate how much you have to pay to get the highest grade token in Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. The highest grade token in Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion would have certain privileges and could even use Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion's intelligence department. This was what Yu Haoran wanted, and the main reason why he was willing to trade so many treasures. However, Old Man Feng's reply not only disappointed Yu Haoran greatly, but also deeply wounded his self-esteem. Cultivation. He wasn't even 18 years old, but his cultivation and physical body had both reached the Martial Master 10th completion realm. Yu Haoran believed that his performance wouldn't lose to the most outstanding geniuses of the 7 top sections. Identity. Yu Haoran was the vice chief of the second-rate 100 Qi Gate. His master, Feng Qingyun, was a martial saint expert who had comprehended a special power of law. He believed that his status was not inferior to that of the core and legacy disciples of the top sections. Status. Yu Haoran believed that with his secret method of transforming into a strange beast, his strength was at the peak of the 9th grade of the Martial Emperor realm, and his staff technique, which was close to the power of the Martial Saint realm, he would definitely be able to stir up the situation in the Emperor Qin Kingdom. He would definitely be able to obtain the attention of the Martial Saint realm experts. With his cultivation, identity, and status, he was fully qualified to be an honored guest of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. But what about the attitude of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion? Yu Haoran swore with a sneer in his heart as he raised his head to look at the crowded auction. Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, today you've ignored me. Tomorrow, I'll make sure you're out of reach. Under Wu Yuan's lead, Yu Haoran quickly arrived in front of Private Room number 71. Although Private Room number 71 was located in a remote area, it was quiet and did not attract the attention of others. Yu Haoran nodded in satisfaction. All right, you may leave. Yu Haoran instructed Wu Yuan as he used the pink token in his hand to open the door to private room number 71. I'll be in charge of maintaining order in the auction hall. If young master has any instructions, you can ask any of the staff here. They'll inform me immediately, Wu Yuan reminded him, unwilling to let go of such a forthright Yu Haoran. All right, I got it. Yu Haoran nodded and stepped into the private room. Although the private room's layout was very simple, with only one table and 4 chairs, it gave off a very comfortable and relaxing feeling. Moreover, in the direction of the auction stage, there was a piece of glass made of celestial crystals, which allowed him to clearly see the auction items on the stage in the middle of the hall. Leaning back in his chair, Yu Haoran closed his eyes and quietly waited for the auction to begin. Half an hour later, the old man who had helped him appraise the items slowly appeared on the stage in the center of the hall, indicating that the grand auction had officially begun. Ahem! Looking at the guests below the stage who were chatting with each other, the old man coughed lightly with the power of his spirit. When all the guests' attention was focused on the old man, his wrinkled face squeezed out a happy smile. Everyone present is an honored guest of my heavenly fragrance pavilion. Some of you know this old man, but there are also guests from other places who don't know this old man. Next, in order to better help everyone bid for the items you like, this old man will introduce himself. This old man's surname is Feng, and my given name is Yun. I'm currently a guest of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. My main job is to appraise and collect rare treasures for the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. After a simple introduction, Feng Yun began to explain the rules of the auction in detail. In his previous life, he had participated in the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion's auctions more than once, so he was very familiar with the rules and procedures of the auction. Thus, Yu Haoran couldn't be bothered to listen to Feng Yun's nonsense. Using the transparent window in front of him, he began to observe the guests in the hall. After careful observation, Yu Haoran really did discover a few familiar faces. For example, Gao Wanping, who had been driven away by his anger, Meng Yun, who had received him, and Xia Yufeng, who had been forced to close his shop. Acquaintances aside, Yu Haoran had no intention of greeting them. But when his gaze landed on a woman in a black dress and a black cloak in the southern corner of the hall, he was so shocked that he stood up. Then, agitated, he planned to leave the private room and greet the woman in black. But at this moment, Feng Yun, who had finished explaining the rules and procedures of the auction, didn't waste any time and directly started the auction. He had no choice but to give up on the idea of greeting the woman. Yu Haoran, what's the matter with you? Thaling, who was using the Earth Spirit Flower to recover his soul, hadn't paid any attention to Yu Haoran ever since he had successfully escaped the surveillance of the experts from the Ministry of Rites. Even though he had been greatly angered by Feng Yun's words, Thaling hadn't been alarmed, who was making the best use of his time to recover his soul. But when Yu Haoran saw the woman in black, his emotions had fluctuated so violently that it had completely alarmed Thaling. He had hurriedly stopped the recovery process and asked in concern. Chapter 529. Hidden Art Pavilion, Auction Hall. Yu Haoran, this is an auction. After interacting with him for a long time, Thaling had a good understanding of Yu Haoran's personality. She knew that if he did not want to talk about something, no matter how much she asked, it would be useless. Thus, seeing that Yu Haoran was unwilling to talk about the reason for the drastic change in his emotions, Thaling did not pursue the matter. Originally, she wanted to continue refining the Earth Spirit Flower and to try to recover her spirit at the peak of martial honor level as soon as possible. However, she was suddenly attracted by the shouting outside the private room. The familiar scene caused Thaling to excitedly shout at Yu Haoran. That's right, this is not only an auction, but an auction that will cause a sensation in the entire Tianxian continent. Through adjusting his breathing, Yu Haoran had already calmed down his excited emotions and no longer paid attention to the woman in black. At this moment, all his attention was on the auction that had already begun. Thus, after hearing Thaling's excited shout, Yu Haoran could not help but agree. Oh, from your tone, it seems that you have attended this auction in your previous life. Yu Haoran's tone of agreement just now was filled with endless emotions, causing Fowling to mistakenly believe that he had attended this auction in his previous life. Shaking his head, Howren could not help but recall that in his previous life, he had heard a senior who had personally attended an auction. He could not control his emotions as he recounted the rare treasures that had appeared in the auction, the fights that had occurred during the auction, and the chaos that had ensued. Fowling, although I did not attend this auction that will cause a sensation in my previous life, I do know what kind of precious treasures will appear in the auction. Just wait. You will definitely be shocked by the rare treasures that will appear in this auction. Just as Howren was introducing the rare treasures that he had heard about in his previous life to Fowling, Sister Chiao, who had placed a tray on the jade platform, reached out to remove the red cloth that covered the item that was being auctioned. It could be used to shield one's divine sense. Blood Dragon Stone, a strange stone that contains the blood of a divine dragon and the blood of a green dragon python. It can be used to refine artifacts of the king level, and can also be used to extract blood essence to nurture one's pet. Feng Yun explained in detail as he pointed at the blood-stained stone that was about the size of a baby's fist. Blood Dragon Stone. The starting price is 10,000 8th-grade spirit stones. Each increment cannot be lower than 1,000 8th-grade spirit stones. The bidding begins. 11,000 8th-grade, 1st-grade spirit stones. Just as Feng Yun signaled the start of the auction, the bidders in the hall began to bid. 13,000 8th-tier, 1st-grade spirit stones. A young man with an outstanding temperament shouted loudly. Regardless of whether it was used to refine artifacts or feed pet beasts, it was not something that an ordinary organization or martial artist could afford. Hence, although the bidding voices rose and fell, the price of the stone increased by 1,000 spirit stones. This made Feng Yun, who had been full of smiles, a trace of displeasure flashed across his eyes. He waved his left pinky, and a middle-aged man on the north side of the hall started bidding. He immediately raised the price to 50,000 8th-grade, 1st-grade spirit stones. Howren bid for this stone. Ever since Sister Chiao had removed the red cloth that blocked the naked eye and divine sense, Fowling's attention had been drawn to the blood-stained stone. He used his divine sense, which had recovered to the level of an advanced martial honor, to examine it carefully. Fowling, it's just a blood dragon stone stained with the blood of a green dragon python. It's not worth 50,000 8th-grade, 1st-grade spirit stones. Furthermore, this blood dragon stone is useless to me. What's the point of bidding for it? Although Howren didn't care about 50,000 spirit stones, he felt that it was a waste to bid for something that was useless, even if it was just a 10th-grade, 1st-grade spirit stone. You're right. If it's just stained with the blood of a green dragon python, this blood dragon stone isn't worth this price. However, if it's a blood dragon stone stained with the blood of a real green dragon king, then even 5 million 8th-grade, 1st-grade, 1st-grade spirit stones would be worth it, let alone 50,000. Fowling knew that Howren hadn't realized the true value of this blood dragon stone. Hence, he quickly explained why he wanted him to bid. Howren couldn't help but gasp in disbelief. Is this the blood of a real serpent dragon, or the blood of a king among serpents? After all, a green dragon king that could shed its mortal body and become a green dragon king was at least a 5th-rank emperor. As the green flood dragon that contained the most divine dragon bloodline, when it shed its mortal body, it would directly advance to the 4th-level saint realm. As the king of green flood dragons, the Green Flood Dragon King was a rank 3 exalted realm existence. If the blood on the Blood Dragon Stone was really the blood of the Green Dragon King, then it was just as Fowling had said. Even if he had to spend 5 million 1st-grade, 8th-level spirit stones, it would still be a great bargain for him. When have I ever lied to you? Fowling grumbled unhappily when he saw Howren's subconscious reaction. He didn't believe in his own judgment. 60,000 1st-grade, 8th-tier spirit stones. Smiling embarrassedly, Howren raised the price by 10,000 1st-grade, 8th-grade energy stones. Feng Yun, who was on the high platform, heaved a sigh of relief when he finally heard someone call out a bid of more than 50,000. This was because the middle-aged man who'd bid 50,000 had been arranged by the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion on purpose. He only had one goal, and that was to raise the price on purpose. However, Feng Yun hadn't expected that the Blood Dragon Stone, which was worth close to 50,000 on the market, wouldn't attract the attention of the crowd. In the end, it had almost fallen into his hands. Fortunately, someone had helped him out of this predicament and prevented the Blood Dragon Stone from falling into his hands. All right, the esteemed guest in private room 71 has bid 60,000 first-grade 8th-level spirit stones. Are there any other bids? Feng Yun wasn't worried since someone else had taken over the Blood Dragon Stone. He began to liven up the atmosphere according to the auctioneer's plan. 60,000 first-grade 8th-level spirit stones, going once. 60,000 first-grade 8th-level spirit stones, going twice. Unfortunately, the Blood Dragon Stone had a specific purpose and didn't liven up the atmosphere. In the end, after 3 bids, the Blood Dragon Stone was won by Yu Haoran. Yu Haoran handed over the 60,000 8th-grade spirit stones that he had prepared in advance to the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion staff. Then he took the Blood Dragon Stone from the staff and felt the fresh blood on the Blood Dragon Stone up close. Fouling, that's not right. This is clearly the blood of an ordinary green dragon python. It's not the green dragon king you mentioned. Through close observation, Yu Haoran came to the same conclusion as Feng Yun. He couldn't help but question Feng Yun. Feel it again. Fouling didn't respond to Yu Haoran's question. He used a special method to extract the fresh blood on the Blood Dragon Stone before instructing Yu Haoran. Chapter 530. In the auction hall of the Hidden Art Pavilion, Yu Haoran sensed the cherry-sized drop of blood floating in front of him. He immediately sensed the terrifying power contained within the blood. Finally, he confirmed that the blood in the Blood Dragon Stone was the blood of the Green Dragon King, just as Fouling had said. However, why did the blood in the Blood Dragon Stone appear to be that of an ordinary green dragon python? Yu Haoran looked at the stone, which had become an ordinary stone after the blood was extracted. Mystical Void Stone. This is a mystical void stone. With the help of his cultivation and physical body, which had broken through to the Martial Master Stage Level 10, Lu Cheng's spiritual will slowly seeped into the stone. Yu Haoran could not help but exclaim in surprise as he felt a sense of familiarity. That's right, this is the mystical Void Stone, which is worth about the same as the blood of the Green Dragon King. It can be used to make formation flags. Fouling confirmed. It's worth it. Both the blood of the Green Dragon King and the mystical Void Stone were worth more than 5 million level 8 spiritual stones. Therefore, Yu Haoran said happily after putting away the mystical Void Stone and the blood of the Green Dragon King. Then, he looked at the second item on the jade platform. When Sister Qiao uncovered the red cloth of the second auction item, a crystal clear bead with a trace of blue water droplets was lying quietly on the tray. Could this be an aquamarine pearl that can aid in the cultivation of a water-based body? Yu Haoran guessed. What Feng Yun said next confirmed his conjecture. The aquamarine pearl can help water-based martial artists below the martial emperor stage increase their cultivation speed by 1 to 3 times. The starting price for the aquamarine pearl is 100,000 level 8 spiritual stones. Each bid cannot exceed 2,000 spiritual stones. Let the bidding begin. As soon as Feng Yun announced the start of the auction, the atmosphere in the auction hall became lively. 110,000 level 8 spiritual stones. 120,000 level 8 spiritual stones. Unlike the Blood Dragon stones, the aquamarine pearls had a wider range of uses and fewer restrictions, so there were more people bidding for them. After 7 rounds of bidding, the price of the aqua blue pearl had exceeded 200,000 8th order first grade spiritual stones. Yu Haoran, aren't you going to make a move? Fouling asked when he saw Yu Haoran was just watching from the sidelines. Among the Qingyun disciples, only 3rd senior brother and junior brother Gongsun have a water attribute constitution. But with their talent and potential, as well as the spirit stones and pills I gave them, their advancement speed has already reached the limit. Aquamarine pearl, useless. Yu Haoran shook his head and explained, "That's true." Nodding, Fowling also stopped paying attention to the aquamarine pearl. He continued to absorb the medicinal power of the earth soul flower to recover his spirit while waiting for the appearance of the third auction item. Although the aquamarine pearl had a wide range of uses, it was limited by its grade. After the price broke through 200,000 eighth order first grade spiritual stones, the bidding gradually slowed down. In the end, the aquamarine pearl was won by a beautiful middle-aged woman on the north side of the hall for 230,000 eighth order first grade spiritual stones. Black gold, the top crafting material in the Tianxin continent. It can be used to craft saint-level weapons. The starting price of the black gold is 1,500,000 eighth order first grade spiritual stones. Each increment must not be less than 10,000 spiritual stones. Yu Haoran, if possible, bid for the black gold, Fowling suggested as he looked at the fist-sized piece of black gold on the tray. "Sure, if the final price does not exceed 2 million, I will bid for it for you." Yu Haoran nodded and replied. Although black gold was one of the top crafting materials in the Tianxin continent, it was not rare. It was just that the place where it was harvested was more dangerous. Therefore, the market price of black gold was about 2 million. If the bidding price exceeded 2 million, it would not be worth it to bid for it. Most of the people present were like Yu Haoran. They understood the true value of black gold. Therefore, when Feng Yin signaled the start of the bidding, the scene was silent for a while before the bidding price came out from private room 58. 1,560,000 eighth order first grade spiritual stones. Good. The distinguished guest in private room 58 has bid 1,560,000 eighth order first grade spiritual stones. Is there anyone bidding higher than this price? Feng Yin did not care about the black gold's awkward silence. Before the auction, he had already planned to auction the black gold. Now that someone had bid and could guarantee that it would not go unsold, Feng Yin was very happy. 1,580,000 eighth order first grade spiritual stones. Just as Qin Yun's voice fell, private room 38 bid for the black gold with an additional 10,000 eighth order first grade spiritual stones. Now, the price of the black gold has 1,908th order first grade spiritual stones. However, before Feng Yin could finish his words to liven up the atmosphere, he was interrupted by a bid from room 71. "Ladies and gentlemen, the price of the black gold has reached 1,900,000. Are there any friends who would like to bid higher?" Unfortunately, 1,900,000 eighth order first grade spiritual stones was the highest price of black gold in the market. Therefore, even though Feng Yin was trying to stir up the crowd, no one agreed with him. In the end, the black gold was bought by Yu Haoran for 1,900,000 eighth order first grade spiritual stones. "Fowling, the black gold is yours." After handing over the black gold to the shop assistant of Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, Yu Haoran directly sent the black gold to the victor. Mysterious ice jade, it has the effect of calming the qi and concentrating the mind. It can eliminate the inner demons that arise when one breaks through cultivation. The starting price is 800,000 eighth order first grade spiritual stones. Each bid must not be lower than 2,000 eighth order first grade spiritual stones. Heavenly Wolf Flower, the 93rd most poisonous spiritual medicine in the Tianxin continent. It contains qualities that can directly harm a peak 9th order martial emperor. The starting price is 1,600,000 eighth order first grade spiritual stones. Each bid must not be lower than 5,000 eighth order first grade spiritual stones. In the following period of time, Feng Yin consecutively auctioned more than 10 kinds of precious spiritual medicines and refining materials. Although no one from the 72 private rooms made a move, the atmosphere in the hall had been completely stirred up by him. Among them, there were a few precious spiritual medicines that were sold for more than 3 times the price of the medicine itself. 3 7th order, 9th order form consolidating elixirs, which can help a martial artist break through to the martial ancestor realm. The starting price is 1,200,000 eighth order first grade spiritual stones. Each bid must not be lower than 3,000 eighth order first grade spiritual stones. Originally, Howard had been slightly relaxed because the treasure he had been looking forward to did not appear. However, when he heard that the 17th auction item was actually the form consolidating pill that he had always wanted to refine, but had been unable to refine due to the lack of two crucial supplementary medicinal ingredients, he immediately perked up. However, he did not rush to make a bid. Chapter 531. Hidden Art Pavilion, Auction Hall. As expected, as soon as Feng Yun signaled the start of the auction, the sound of bidding began to ring out in the hall. 1,210,000 level 8 spirit stones. In the face of a form amassing pill that can accelerate the condensation of one's soul, you're only increasing the price by 10,000. You're underestimating the value of this energy amassing pill. An old man in luxurious brocade robes mocked the middle-aged man who had made the first bid. Then he increased the price by 290,000 first grade 8th level spirit stones, raising the price of the form assembling pill to 1.5 million first grade 8th level spirit stones. The actions of the old man in luxurious brocade robes completely stunned everyone in the hall, causing the auction hall to fall into a temporary silence. Seeing that no one dared to bid against him, the old man in luxurious brocade robes smiled smugly. He ignored Feng Yun's annoyance and urged, "Old Feng, now that no one is bidding, hurry up and announce the owner of the energy condensation pill." Feng Yun snorted in dissatisfaction at the old man's urging. Doubling the price was a good thing for the auction hall. However, using the method of doubling the price to threaten and intimidate other competitors who wanted to increase the price was something that the auction house absolutely did not want to see. However, the old man in luxurious brocade robes who had just raised the price had an extraordinary background. He did not dare to offend him and could only helplessly wait for the auction to start. Someone has already bid 1,500,000 level 8 spirit stones. I wonder if there are any other friends who would like to bid. 1,500,000 level 8 spirit stones going once. Feng Yun slowly raised his left hand and looked at the 72 private rooms. Only the VIPs in the private rooms could ignore the old man's threat and make a bid. 1,500,000 level 8 spirit stones going twice. Seeing that there were no other competitors in the private rooms, Feng Yun pointed at the old man in luxurious brocade robes with his left hand and was about to shout out the final question. Suddenly, the voice of a bid came from the private room. 1,600,000 level 8 spirit stones. Howard, who had already opened his mouth and was about to shout out 1,600,000 spirit stones, was slightly taken aback. Then, he leaned back in his chair with a relaxed expression and began to watch the show of threats and counter-threats. This was because Howard happened to know the old man in luxurious brocade robes who had raised the price to 1,500,000 spirit stones. He knew the old man's power in Xianyang City and his eccentric personality. Originally, the old man in luxurious brocade robes was definitely qualified to enjoy the treatment of a private room with his status and ability. However, he liked to show his face in public and attract attention. That was why he had chosen to stay in the hall with the ordinary people. This was why the arrogant Feng Yun did not dare to offend him. Ouch! The old man in luxurious brocade robes. He had already prepared his spirit stones to trade with the energy condensation pill. But when he saw that someone actually daring to intercept his bid, I don't know which blind thing actually dared to intercept this old man's medicinal pills halfway through. I think he must be tired of living. Old man, watch your words. If you anger me, I'll make sure you don't live to see the sun tomorrow. Faced with the threat of the old man in luxurious brocade robes, a similarly blunt threat came from private room 68. The threat was light and crisp, indicating that the person threatening the old man in luxurious brocade robes was a young man. Good, very good. Faced with the threat from private room 68, The old man in luxurious brocade robes roared with laughter. Then he turned and left the auction hall. Ladies and gentlemen, the guest in private room 68 has bid 1,600,000 level 8 spirit stones. Are there any friends who wish to increase the bid? You should know that one energy condensation pill can speed up the condensation of one spirit by 3 times. 3 energy condensation pills can allow you to condense your spirit the moment you break through to the martial ancestor realm. Feng Yun knew why the old man in luxurious brocade robes had suddenly left. However, this matter had nothing to do with him or the auction hall. Therefore, taking advantage of the fact that someone had raised the price of the energy condensation pills, Feng Yun hurriedly stirred up the crowd's emotions, hoping to raise the price even higher. 1,700,000 level 8 spirit stones. A voice called out from private room 52. 1,750,000 level 8 spirit stones. A voice called out from private room 40. Following the sudden increase in the price of the energy condensation pills, the price of the energy condensation pills began to rise. Soon, it reached 2 million level 8 spirit stones. At this point, the price of the energy condensation pills had already exceeded the market price of 3 energy condensation pills. Yu Haoran, why haven't you made your move yet? Fowling had seen Yu Haoran's move just now. He also knew that Yu Haoran had been collecting elixirs and spirit medicine that could help to enhance one's spirit. Now that the price of the energy condensation pills had exceeded 2 million, Fowling was puzzled that Yu Haoran had not made his move yet. I will make my move, but it's not time yet. Yu Haoran shook his head, indicating that the time was not yet right. However, when the price of the energy condensation pills reached 2,450,000 and only private rooms 68 and 52 were left, he began to make his move. 3 million level 8 spirit stones. Although it was only a level 8 spirit stone, the sudden increase in the price of the energy condensation pills by more than 500,000 was enough to shock everyone present. The guest in private room 71 has made his move again, and he's offering 3 million spirit stones in one go. This shows that this guest knows very well about the miraculous effects of the energy condensation pills. Guests, friends, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and make your move. Feng Yun, who was also shocked, quickly realized that there was a business opportunity in this. He quickly encouraged the crowd, hoping that someone would continue to raise the price. Unfortunately, 3 million level 8 spirit stones had far exceeded the value of the energy condensation pills. No one present was foolish enough to throw caution to the wind. Therefore, no matter how much Feng Yun encouraged, no one continued to raise the price. In the end, the energy condensation pills were won by Yu Haoran. Friend in private room 71, I'll remember you. Just as Feng Yun announced that the energy condensation pills had been won by private room 71, the owner of private room 68, who had risked offending the old man in the brocade robe, reminded him in a sinister tone. I'll be waiting for you. Yu Haoran replied unyieldingly with a sneer. Yu Haoran, there are 3 people in private room 68. Chapter 532. Hidden Art Pavilion, Auction Hall. Although the entire auction hall used a formation and special materials to prohibit the use of divine sense for Fowling, whose soul had recovered to the high level of revered martial artist and was proficient in all kinds of formations, this kind of restriction on divine sense was useless. Therefore, after hearing the threat from room 68, Fowling immediately used his divine sense to observe the situation in room 68. That young man and middle-aged man don't matter. They can't even withstand a slap from He Xiong, but that old man gives me a dangerous feeling. Yu Haoran, I suspect that the power of law that this person comprehended might be a special law related to speed and strength. Fowling, don't worry, they won't find trouble with me. Facing Fowling's worried reminder, Yu Haoran comforted him with a relaxed expression. Because the moment the auction ends, they will face one of the 5 great clans of Xianyang City, the Gao clan, who is ranked 3rd in terms of overall strength. Hearing Yu Haoran mention the revenge of the Gao clan of Xianyang City, Faling immediately thought of the old man in embroidered clothes who had just left and immediately felt relieved. Then, like Yu Haoran, he looked at the 18th auction item on the Jade platform. How is this possible? Faling couldn't help but cry out involuntarily when he saw that Xiao Mei had removed the red cloth on the tray and placed a piece of golden iron that was about the size of a bowl. Faling's cry of shock made Yu Haoran realize the preciousness of the 18th auction item. Therefore, he quickly recalled his understanding of auctions from his previous life. After confirming the origin of this auction item, the auction process, and the final owner, Yu Haoran already had his own ideas for the next auction. Yu Haoran, this is black gold true iron, a treasure that can be used to forge emperor weapons. You must get it. After using his divine sense to confirm that the golden iron was indeed the best material for forging weapons, Faling excitedly instructed. Faling, calm down. Yu Haoran had to remind him when he heard the uncontrollable excitement in Faling's tone. Yu Haoran, you don't know this, but if you fuse black gold true iron into your natal instrument, it will increase the chances of it becoming an exalt instrument by at least 50% and an emperor instrument by at least 20%. Yu Haoran's overly calm behavior made Faling mistakenly think that he didn't know the heaven-defying effects of the black gold true iron, so he hurriedly explained. Faling, in my previous life, I once spent some time in the weapon refining sect, one of the 7 top forces. How could I not know about the heaven-defying effect of the black gold true iron on the enhancement of a natal ritual implement? In order to make Faling give up on competing for the black gold true iron, he had to let him know about the competitors who would compete for the black gold true iron, as well as the chaos that would ensue after the auction. Therefore, Yu Haoran said, rather helplessly, Faling, the black gold true iron was the first item to appear in this auction. It was a peerless treasure that caused everyone to go crazy over. Not only did the top forces in Xianyang City participate, but even the top forces like the weapon refining sect and the Xiandao school participated. Although the weapon refining sect, one of the top forces of the 7 top forces, won the black gold true iron in the end, a few forces who were not satisfied with the outcome decided to launch a sneak attack on the weapon refining sect after the auction ended. The martial emperors and martial saints attacked without restraint, and in the end, Emperor Qin was enraged. In the end, not only was the black gold true iron taken away by Emperor Qin, but more than a dozen experts who chose to launch a sneak attack were killed on the spot by Emperor Qin. Moreover, the final price of the black gold true iron was as high as 40 million spirit stones. Are we going to give up just like that? Faling asked unwillingly. Faling, don't be disappointed. There will be even more top-tier refining materials that are more suitable for upgrading your natal Dharma artifact. Yu Haoran comforted him. This is also why I don't want to compete for the black gold true iron. The black gold true iron is the 59th best refining material in the Tianxin continent. It's one of the few precious materials that can be used to refine emperor artifacts. Feng Yin scanned the hall, but his gaze was more focused on the 72 private rooms. His voice was full of temptation. Whether it's an ordinary emperor artifact refined through refining or a complete emperor artifact that has evolved step by step, I'm sure everyone here knows the power of an emperor artifact. Therefore, without further ado, the black gold true iron starting price is 10 million first-grade 8th level spirit stones. Each bid cannot be lower than 10,000. Let the bidding begin. Before Feng Yin could finish announcing the start of the bidding, a young man's voice rang out from private room 68. 15 million first-grade 8th level spirit stones. A direct increase of 5 million was the first time such a large increase had occurred since the start of the auction. Everyone in the hall couldn't help but gasp. However, what was even more unexpected was that a direct increase of 5 million was only the beginning of the bidding for the black gold true iron. This was because right after the bid from Private Room 68 ended, Private Room 9 followed suit with a bid of 18 million spirit stones. Soon after, a bid of 20 million spirit stones came from Private Room 7. After a short while, the bidding for the black gold true iron quickly broke through the 30 million mark. At this moment, the ordinary people in the hall were already numb from the continuous increase in the bidding price for the black gold true iron. This was because they had never imagined that someone would actually take out 30 million first grade 8th level spirit stones to bid for the black gold true iron. Although it could be refined, no one knew if it could be successfully refined in the end. The guest in private room 9 has already bid 30 million. Feng Yun shouted excitedly when he saw the bid. As a guest of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion and the auctioneer of the auction house, Feng Yun's greatest wish was to auction off an item at a sky-high price, one that would leave his name in history. Although he would definitely not be able to reach the auction record of the entire Tianxian continent in a short period of time, he hoped that today's auction would be able to break the auction record of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion since its establishment. This would have a significant impact on whether he could continue to host large-scale auctions in the future. Now, he was only 5 million spirit stones away from the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion's record. The hope of breaking the record was right in front of him. How could Feng Yun not shout with all his might? To be honest, as one of the few top-notch materials in the Tianxian continent that can be used to refine emperor weapons, 30 million is not a high price. Therefore, friends who are confident in winning the bid for the black gold true iron, quickly show your sincerity and shout out your bid. 31 million first grade 8th level spirit stones. A slightly aged voice suddenly called out from private room 3, which had never participated in the bidding. Chapter 533. Hidden Art Pavilion, Auction Hall. Originally, Yu Haoran felt that the old voice coming from room 3 was very familiar. When he heard the owner of room 9 take the initiative to show weakness and directly call out the owner of room 3's surname, he immediately remembered. This elder Lu was Lu Guangyan, who was in charge of selecting disciples from the Yushu Temple when he participated in the sect selection competition. But why didn't anyone mention Lu Guangyuan or the Yushu Temple when he heard about the auction in his previous life? Aha! Elder Wang, wealth is everything in the auction. If you really want the profound gold true iron, you can definitely offer a higher price than me. Lu Guangyuan laughed proudly at Elder Wang's show of weakness. He didn't give the other party any face at all. Even if I lose in the end, I will lose willingly. All right, they were both from the top 7 sects, but the Yushu Temple didn't give them any face just for a single item. Elder Wang from the crafting sect gritted his teeth and raised the price of the item. Soon after, the bidding for room 3 and room 9 began to increase by 1 million spiritual stones. However, when the price of the profound gold true iron reached 38 million spirit stones, both Lu Guangyuan from the Yushu Temple and Elder Wang from room 9 started to be cautious. Although the fight for the black gold true iron was not as intense as it had been in the beginning, Yu Haoran knew that Elder Wang from the crafting school was determined to get the black gold true iron. This was because Elder Wang had a damaged high-grade exalted realm magic artifact that needed the profound gold true iron to repair. As long as the profound gold true iron was infused into the magic artifact, the high-grade exalted realm magic artifact would be able to unleash 30% of its power. 30% of the power of a high-grade exalted realm magic artifact was close to the peak of the 9th grade martial saint. Originally, he had a good relationship with the crafting sect in his previous life, so he shouldn't have plotted against them. However, Elder Wang wasn't a good person. In his previous life, the two of them had a lot of conflicts. Furthermore, the reason why his enemies had found out that he was hiding in the weapon refining school was because of this Elder Wang. Therefore, Yu Haoran planned to add fuel to the fire and join in the fun. 40 million first-grade, 8th-tier spirit stones. Just as Elder Wang of the crafting school was calculating whether or not he would be able to shock Lu Guangyuan with his next bid, an even higher bid suddenly came from private room 71, which had never participated in the bidding before. Although he didn't understand why the owner of room 71 would suddenly participate in the auction of profound gold true iron. In this case, with one more person participating in the auction, the final price would be higher and the broken record could be maintained for a longer time. Therefore, Feng Yun hurriedly encouraged him excitedly. Look, the VIP in room 71 has finally made his move. From the way VIP in room 71 made his move, this old man believes that this VIP must have set his eyes on the profound gold true iron from the very beginning. The reason he didn't participate in the auction before was probably because he didn't care about the low price. Now, when the final owner of the black gold true iron is about to be decided, not only did he make a move, but he also broke the 40 million spirit stones barrier in one move. This is enough to show that this honored guest has absolute confidence in the black gold true iron. So what are you all waiting for? Hurry up and increase the price. Yu Haoran's sudden move had already made Elder Wang nervous. Feng Yun's arrogance, or rather, his provocation, made Elder Wang feel even more pressure. Coldly looking at Feng Yun, Yu Haoran knew that Feng Yun was trying to increase the final price of the profound gold true iron. Old man, Yu Haoran, am not that easy to mess with. Just you wait, Yu Haoran said through gritted teeth. 43 million 8th grade spirit stones. It was precisely because of Yu Haoran's sudden intervention that Elder Wang, who had originally planned on spending 40 million spirit stones at most, ended up using a portion of the spirit stones he had in reserve. The VIP in room 9 has already bid 43 million spirit stones. I wonder how much the VIP in rooms 3 and 71 will bid. Seeing VIP in room 9 raise the price of the profound gold true iron once more, Feng Yun looked at VIP rooms 3 and 71 with even more excitement. He hoped that they would bid even higher. Unfortunately, after waiting for a full 5 minutes, neither of the two rooms made a bid. Room 71, in particular, voluntarily gave up. This made Feng Yun feel like he had been slapped in the face. Thus, after confirming that no one else wanted to bid on the profound gold true iron, Feng Yun hastened his countdown and directly announced the winner of the profound gold true iron. The Tao Comprehension Stone can increase a cultivator's comprehension and aid them in breaking through bottlenecks, allowing them to increase their cultivation and strength faster. Feng Yun shouted loudly as he pointed at the 19th auction item, readjusting his mentality. The starting bid is 2 million 8th grade spirit stones. Each bid increment cannot be lower than 10,000 8th grade spirit stones. The auction begins now. In the early stages of cultivation, the requirements for comprehension were not high. As long as one's talent and potential were not too bad and one had sufficient energy, one could basically maintain a rapid cultivation speed. However, after one's cultivation broke through to the martial ancestor realm and condensed one's soul, the requirements for comprehension became very important. If a cultivator wanted to comprehend the power of laws and break through to the martial sage realm, the requirements for comprehension were even higher. Thus, when they saw that the 19th auction item was actually a Tao Comprehension Stone that could increase one's comprehension, everyone in the hall and the experts in the rooms could not help but bid on it. A mere apple-sized Tao Comprehension Stone can only help a martial ancestor realm cultivator increase their comprehension. It is not worth 2 million spirit stones. Faling scanned it with his divine sense and knew that the Tao Comprehension Stone on the J platform could only be considered an ordinary item. He was afraid that Yu Haoran would bid on it and hurriedly explained, Yu Haoran, your comprehension is already outstanding. In addition to your 100 years of experience in your previous life, your comprehension is not inferior to your own potential. Thus, this Tao Comprehension Stone is of no use to you. Faling, don't worry, I know what to do, Yu Haoran nodded and said with a smile. However, when he saw the coldness in Yu Haoran's smile, Faling knew that someone was going to be unlucky. The starting bid of 2 million quickly rose to 8 million under the intense bidding of the crowd. Actually, the market price of a Tao Comprehension Stone that could only increase a martial ancestor realm cultivator's comprehension was between 2 to 3 million. However, the Tao Comprehension Stone auctioned by the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion was slightly larger in size. At the same time, one could not use their divine sense to examine it. This caused the crowd to mistakenly think that the Tao Comprehension Stone was also useful for martial kings and martial emperors. This was also the main reason why the price rose so quickly. Chapter 534. Sorry, there was a lot of work to do at the office today. I've been busy until now, so the update of the first 5 chapters will be delayed. Hidden Art Loft, Auction Venue. Since Feng Yun hadn't directly explained the effects of the Tao Comprehension Stone and the specific cultivation realm it targeted, everyone wasn't too sure about it. If the Enlightenment Stone's effects were not what they had guessed, which was that it could increase the power of enlightenment of martial emperors and martial sages, but only for martial grandmasters and martial kings, then the Enlightenment Stone itself would only be worth 3 to 4 million Spirit Stones. 6 to 7 million Spirit Stones was still a loss for the people who had participated in the auction earlier. However, if the price exceeded 8 million Spirit Stones, even the guests in the private rooms would have to think twice, let alone the people in the hall. After all, the real goal of the VIPs in the private room was the treasures that were about to be revealed. If they wasted too many Spirit Stones on the Enlightenment Stone, it would affect the subsequent auctions. Seeing that the price of the Enlightenment Stone had exceeded 8 million Spirit Stones, it showed signs of slowing down. It was still far from the price he had expected. Feng Yun reached out and touched his nose. 10 million 8th grade Spirit Stones. Just as Feng Yun reached out to touch his nose, a bid suddenly came from Private Room 40, which had not participated in the auction before. Furthermore, the price of the Enlightenment Stone had broken through the 10 million mark. I knew it. When Feng Yun heard the bid of 10 million Spirit Stones from Room 40, an ecstatic smile appeared on his face, and he slapped his thigh with all his might as he yelled, "That's right. How can the Enlightenment Stone, which is one of the few things in the Tianxian continent that can increase one's power of enlightenment, only be worth 8 million Spirit Stones?" It looks like the guests in Private Room 40 have already seen the value of this Enlightenment Stone and are planning to fight for it. Dear guests, friends, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and bid for such a precious treasure. Although Feng Yun wanted to exaggerate the value of the Enlightenment Stone to increase the price, he knew that the Enlightenment Stone, which had lost part of its energy, was only worth 2 to 3 million Spirit Stones at most. If he exaggerated the effects of the Enlightenment Stone too much and the guests in the private rooms won the bid, it would be easy for them to find fault with him. It would negatively affect the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion's auction. Therefore, he could only make use of his arrangements to raise the price of the Enlightenment Stone. Consecrator Feng is right. There are very few treasures in the profound sky continent that can be used to increase one's perception. The Enlightenment Stone is one of the few treasures that are most suitable for increasing one's perception. Just as Feng Yun was urging the crowd to continue bidding, the middle-aged man who had participated in the Blood Dragon Stone auction at the beginning hurriedly stood up and chimed in. Although I, Lin Jiahao, am not very rich, for my son, I am willing to pay 11 million level 8 first-grade Spirit Stones, 12 million first-grade 8th-tier Spirit Stones. As if he was moved by the words of the owner of Room 40 and the middle-aged man, the owner of Room 71 immediately placed a bid of 11 million Spirit Stones. You Howren, didn't I already tell you that this Enlightenment Stone is worth at most 2 million Spirit Stones? Why are you still participating in this auction? Seeing that Yu Howren had ignored his advice, and not only had he participated in the auction for the Enlightenment Stone, but he had also placed a bid that was 5 times the price of the Enlightenment Stone. This made Thaling very confused and dissatisfied. Thaling, don't be angry. I don't want to bid for this Enlightenment Stone. I just want to put on a show with someone. Faced with Thaling's confusion and dissatisfaction, Yu Howren hurriedly tried to console and explain. Put on a show. Thaling looked at Feng Yun, then at the middle-aged man in the private room. His confused eyes gradually brightened. Consecrator. Thaling pointed at the middle-aged man and asked with a smile. It's not just that middle-aged man. The person in Room 40 is also a consecrator arranged by the auction, Yu Howren said with a cold smile. You can play if you want, but you have to know your limits. Don't go for wool and come home shorn. Knowing that Yu Haoran was taking revenge on Feng Yun for using him to raise the price of the black gold true iron, Thowling did not object. He only reminded Yu Haoran to quit while he was ahead. Thowling, don't worry. I know what I'm doing, Yu Haoran said confidently. It looks like the VIP in room 71 has already realized the value of the Enlightenment Stone. He has placed a bid of 12 million spirit stones. What are you waiting for? Yu Haoran's bid caused the originally worried Feng Yun to heave a sigh of relief. This meant that the owner of room 71 was willing to take a gamble. Furthermore, 12 million spirit stones were enough to satisfy the person who had entrusted the auction of the Tao Comprehension Stone to the auction house. However, right at this moment, room 3 suddenly made a bid with a high price. 15 million level 8, first-grade spirit stones. Yu Haoran frowned slightly. He looked at room 3 in confusion. He did not understand why an elder of the Yushu Temple would be so interested in an ordinary enlightenment stone. But when he saw the dissatisfaction in Feng Yun's eyes, an idea suddenly flashed through his mind. At the same time, the questions that had puzzled him in his previous life were gradually resolved by this idea. All right, I didn't think that there would be such a relationship between the two of you. Since you want to play, I'll play a big game with you. After confirming that there was an unspeakable secret between the Yushu Temple and the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, Yu Haoran decided to take advantage of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion because of his deep hatred for the Yushu Temple in his previous life. I didn't think that even an elder of the Yushu Temple would be so interested in the Enlightenment Stone. This means that the value of this Enlightenment Stone is beyond my expectations. If that's the case, I must get this Enlightenment Stone. I bid 20 million level 8, first-grade spirit stones. Hearing Yu Haoran directly raise the price of the Enlightenment Stone to 20 million, the sound of people sucking in a breath of cold air could be heard. But then, they recalled that Yu Haoran had directly pointed out the background of the owner of room 3. Their eyes were filled with surprise. After all, the Yushu Temple was not only one of the 7 top sects, but also the leader of the top sections. If even an elder of the Yushu Temple was willing to fight for the Enlightenment Stone, it must have the effect of targeting martial emperors and martial sages. Therefore, after Yu Haoran pointed out the origin of the owner of room 3, not only did the wealthy powerhouses in the private rooms begin to bid, even the poor ordinary people in the hall began to borrow spiritual stones from each other, intending to participate in the auction. 23 million level 8, first-grade spirit stones. 24 million level 8, first-grade spirit stones. 26 million level 8, first-grade spirit stones. Chapter 535. Hidden Art Loft, Auction Venue. The higher the bid for the Tao Comprehension Stone, the better it was for the auction house. Not only would the final commission be higher, but it would also increase the reputation of the auction house. However, as he watched the bidding price continue to rise, Feng Yun even had the thought of killing himself. Not only were there more and more people bidding for the Tao Comprehension Stone, but there were also a few people that the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion could not afford to offend. In the event that the Enlightenment Stone was bought by a few people who couldn't be offended at a sky-high price, only to find out that the Enlightenment Stone was only worth 2 to 3 million, they would definitely be angered by the auction house and implicate the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. At this moment, Feng Yun wanted to charge into private room 71 and question the owner of private room 71. Why did he expose the identity of the owner of private room 3? But if he wanted to protect the reputation of the auction house, he could not do that. He could only think of a way to deal with this crisis. 45 million level 8 first-grade spirit stones. Even though the auction had been going on for so long, a voice suddenly rang out from VIP room 1, which had never participated in the auction. Not only did the entire place fall silent, Feng Yun could not help but shiver. He knew that the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion had truly offended a faction that they absolutely could not afford to offend. Feng Yun took a deep breath and rubbed his nose again. This time, his pinky was slightly bent. 50 million level 8 first-grade spirit stones. Just as Feng Yun rubbed his nose and bent his pinky, Another bid came from Private Room 40. How could he avoid offending the owner of Private Room 1? The only way was to spend a higher price for the Tao Comprehension Stone and not let the owner of Private Room 1 discover the abnormality of the Tao Comprehension Stone. As for the conflict with Private Room 1 over the Tao Comprehension Stone, he could easily find a scapegoat and cover it up. Hearing the bid from Private Room 1, Yu Haoran could not help but laugh happily. Then, he continued to bid for the Tao Comprehension Stone for the second time. 55 million level 8 first-grade spirit stones. Yu Haoran's sudden bid almost made the owner of Private Room 40 choke. This was because he also planned to bid 55 million spirit stones. But after Yu Haoran beat him to it, he could only bid 60 million spirit stones, because this was the only way to make the person in Room 1 give up on bidding. However, no one would have thought that the owner of Private Room 1 seemed to have set his sights on the Tao Enlightenment Stone and directly offered a price of 70 million spirit stones. At this time, Yu Haoran leaned back in his chair with a relaxed expression. He no longer participated in the bidding for the Enlightenment Stone. If he continued to participate, not only would he offend the owner of VIP Room 1, but he might also accidentally win the Enlightenment Stone. 80 million 8th tier, first-grade spirit stones. In order to completely intimidate the owner of Private Room 1 and to reduce the losses of the Heavenly Fragrant Pavilion, Feng Yun directly raised the price of Private Room 40 by 10 million spirit stones under his various gestures. Ninth sister, stop shouting. In Private Room number 1, a young man of about 30 years of age asked a young lady of about 16 years of age in a purple dress with a bitter smile on his face. Even if that Tao Comprehension Stone can help increase the power of comprehension of a peak 9th grade martial saint, it is definitely not worth 80 million spirit stones. Moreover, if the Tao Comprehension Stone can really help increase the power of a peak 9th grade martial saint, with the intelligence of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion's owner, she definitely wouldn't take the initiative to auction it off. Third brother, don't try to persuade me. Even if this Tao Comprehension Stone is just an ordinary stone in the end, I will still bid for it today. Faced with the young man's earnest persuasion, the young lady's tone was indignant. Because I can't take this lying down. Then, without giving the young man any chance to persuade her, she directly called out a sky-high price. 100 million 8th tier, first-grade spirit stones. As the price of 100 million spirit stones came out from Private Room 1, Feng Yun, who was on the stage, almost cried out. Yu Haoran was even more shocked and opened his mouth wide. Then, he couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile. In his previous life, the Tao Comprehension Stone was eventually bought by a guest in Private Room 53 for a price of 38 million spirit stones. However, he had purposely revealed the identity of the owner of Private Room 3. Not only did the owner of Private Room 1 make a move, but the price also rose to 100 million spirit stones. Yu Haoran knew that while he succeeded in his revenge, he had forcefully changed the trajectory of his future development. Regarding this, he felt deeply helpless. Faced with the sky-high price of 100 million spirit stones, the owner of Private Room 40 didn't immediately bid. Instead, he looked at Feng Yun through the transparent glass. 100 million spirit stones. 100 million 8th tier, first-grade spirit stones. After a year of meticulous preparation for this auction, with the commission from the auction at the end of the auction, this auction's profit would be 300 to 500 million spirit stones at most. Just to curry favor with an ordinary Yushu Temple elder, he had directly lost 100 million 8th tier, first-grade spirit stones. Feng Yun's heart wasn't as simple as bleeding right now. If time could stop, and if a knife was placed in front of him, the first person he would want to cut to pieces would be the Yushu Temple elder, Lu Guangyuan. The second person he would want to execute would be Yu Haoran. However, this was just a beautiful wish that couldn't be realized. Moreover, what he urgently needed to do now was to signal Private Room 40 to continue raising the price to avoid further offending the owner of Private Room 1. 110,000 8th tier, first-grade spirit stones. Raising the price was one thing, but in order to avoid further losses, Feng Yun signaled for the owner of private room 40 to raise the price by 10,000. Aya, how dare you compete with me? The owner of private room 40 had actually dared to raise the price even though she had already bid 100 million spirit stones. What was even more despicable was that the owner of private room 1 had only raised the price by 10,000 spirit stones. However, when she considered her own reserves of spirit stones, she hurriedly asked the young man for help. Third brother, lend me 1 or 200 million spirit stones. After this, I will ask my mother to return them to you. Stop fooling around, ninth sister. Don't you see? The young man, who had always doted on the young girl, criticized her sternly. The owner of private room 40 is actually an agent of the Sky Fragrance Pavilion. The reason he is bidding with you is because he doesn't want you to lose out. If you continue to fool around, I'll take you back to the Imperial Palace now. Forget it. Actually, it wasn't that the young girl didn't understand what was going on. She was just uncomfortable with the feeling of being suppressed. Her only motive was to fight for her dignity. Now that she saw that her third brother was really angry, she knew that he wasn't joking when he threatened her. In the end, she could only shut her mouth obediently. 110,000 8th tier, first grade spirit stones, going once. After waiting for about a minute, private room 1 stopped bidding and Feng Yun hurriedly started the countdown. 110,000 8th tier, first grade spirit stones, going twice. 110,000 8th tier, first grade spirit stones, going thrice. After announcing the countdown in 5 seconds, Feng Yun waved his hand and shouted at private room 40. Chapter 536. Hidden Art Loft, Auction Venue. The staff member who took away the Tao Comprehension Stone did not go to private room 40. Instead, he quickly left the auction venue with a deacon and went straight to the Hidden Art Loft's backyard, which belonged to the assistant pavilion master. Thaling, the second treasure of the auction, and also the highlight of today's auction, is here. Just as Xiao Mei walked up the stage with another tray, Yu Haoran hurriedly straightened his body and looked excitedly at the tray in Xiao Mei's hands. He reminded Thaling, Millennium Spirit Ointment, one of the top healing elixirs in the Tianxian continent. No matter if it's missing an arm or a leg, or if your internal organs have been hollowed out, as long as you use the Millennium Spirit Ointment, you can instantly recover to your original state. Feng Yun opened the jade box on the red cloth tray and gestured to the people in the private room and hall. Then, Feng Yun continued to introduce the jade box. At the same time, the Millennium Spirit Ointment is also the top body refining elixir in the Tianxian continent. As long as you rub the Millennium Spirit Ointment on your body while cultivating your physical body, it can increase the grade of your physical body tenfold or even tenfold. This box of Millennium Spirit Ointment has a total of 4 tails. The starting price is 30 million 8th grade spirit stones, and each increment must be no less than 100,000 spirit stones. The auction starts now. Yu Haoran, no matter how many spirit stones you have to spend, you have to get this box of Millennium Spirit Ointment. Feng Yun had already used his divine perception to check the Millennium Spirit Ointment's contents when he raised the jade box and gestured to the crowd. His voice was filled with excitement. Thaling, I can only say that I'm giving it a try, but I don't have full confidence, Yu Haoran said without much confidence. After all, according to the news he heard from the auction in his previous life, the Millennium Spirit Ointment was sold for an unbelievably high price. Although he had plenty of spirit stones now, the top 10 or so private rooms didn't lack spirit stones either. You're not giving it a try. You have to get the Millennium Spirit Ointment. Sensing that Yu Haoran's tone was not very satisfied, the Tower Genie sternly reminded him, Yu Haoran, the world's understanding of the Millennium Spirit Ointment is too one-sided. In addition to being able to heal injuries and improve the grade of the physical body, the most important function of the Millennium Spirit Ointment is to strengthen the divine soul and increase a martial artist's comprehension by dozens of times. Apart from the effects mentioned above, the Millennium Spirit Ointment is also a type of treasure that can increase one's luck and turn misfortune into blessings. Thaling, don't worry. Even if I have to use 4th-tier spirit stones in the end, I will definitely bid for the Millennium Spirit Ointment. After hearing Thaling further explain the various heaven-defying effects of the Millennium Spirit Ointment, Yu Haoran, who was originally not very confident, spoke with a decisive tone of assurance. 60 million 8th tier, 1st grade spirit stones. As soon as Feng Yin announced the bid, Lu Guangyin, who was in room 3, immediately doubled the price. However, Feng Yin didn't look too happy when the price had doubled. He just stared at room 1. 70 million 8th tier, 1st grade spirit stones. In private room number 1, after the young girl gave the bidding price, she hurriedly turned her head to ask the young man for help. "Third brother, if I don't have enough spirit stones, you must help me." "No problem. I will definitely help you bid for the Millennium Spirit Ointment." The young man nodded and gave the young girl a promise that made her happy. Closing his eyes, Yu Haoran carefully calculated the number of spirit stones he had below 6th tier. After doing some conversion, he was surprised to find that the number of 8th tier, 1st grade spirit stones he could use was as much as 3 billion. Moreover, this didn't include the higher grade spirit stones that could be exchanged for more 5th tier and 4th tier spirit stones. Moreover, he had entrusted the auction house with 3 special treasures that could be auctioned off for hundreds of millions of 8th tier, 1st grade spirit stones. Therefore, Yu Haoran, who had the resources in his hands, began to bid for the Millennium Spirit Ointment. 200 million 8th tier, 1st grade spirit stones. Originally, the price of the Millennium Spirit Ointment was usually 5 million or 10 million. This was already shocking enough for everyone in the hall. As for the owner of private room number 71, he increased the price by 130 million spirit stones in one go. Not only did this completely stupefy everyone in the hall, even the wealthiest private room owners were also stunned by his huge spending just now. "Third brother, lend me some spirit stones." Hearing the owner of room 71 directly bid 200 million spirit stones, the young girl was equally shocked. At the same time, the arrogance in her heart was aroused. Therefore, she stretched out her hand and asked the young man for some spirit stones. "Ninth sister, there are about 200 million spirit stones in here. Be careful." The young man took out a storage bracelet and stuffed it into the young girl's hand as he warned her. "I know." Placing the storage bracelet with spirit stones on the table, the young girl directly bid 300 million spirit stones, continuing to shock everyone in the auction house. Although the 72 private rooms in the auction house had undergone special modifications that could not only shield them from divine sense, but also change their voices, Thaling had already used her divine sense to check the room when the owner of room 1 had started bidding for the Enlightenment Stone. According to Thaling's introduction and his understanding of the Emperor Qin Kingdom from his previous life, Yu Haoran had already guessed who the young man and young girl in room 1 were. He knew that the young girl, who had been aroused, would not easily give up the fight for the Millennium Spirit Ointment. Therefore, Yu Haoran was not the least bit surprised when she directly increased the price by 100 million spirit stones. 400 million 8th tier, 1st grade spirit stones. If he wanted to defeat the girl in the number 1 private room, he had to make her feel shocked and scared every time he made a bid. He had to make her feel like she was powerless to compete with him. Only then would she finally give up the fight for the Millennium Spirit Ointment. Damn it! Seeing that the owner of room 71 had increased the price by 100 million spirit stones, the young girl gnashed her teeth in anger. She calculated her spirit stone reserves and realized that she could only increase the price by 100 million spirit stones at most, which meant that she could bid 500 million spirit stones. However, based on the tone of the owner of room 71, it was as if 400 and 500 million spirit stones were nothing in his eyes. This made the young girl's heart beat faster. Moreover, even if she wanted to continue bidding, considering that she still had to bid for a gift for her mother, she could only helplessly give up in the end. "Third brother, I have something to trouble you with." Throwing the storage bracelet with 200 million spirit stones to the young man, the young girl gnashed her teeth and requested, "No." Before the young girl could make a request, the young man shook his head and refused. First of all, The owner of Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion will not easily reveal information about the owner of the private rooms. Even Imperial Father will not allow us to do so. Are we going to give up just like that? Chapter 537. Hidden Art Pavilion, Auction Venue. Ninth Sister, don't worry. The young man sneered when he saw the young lady's anger. Although we are restricted by our special identities and cannot do anything that will damage the Empire's reputation, the people in the other rooms will definitely not let the owner of room 71 off. So, just wait. The Millennium Spirit Ointment will still belong to you in the end. Is this all right? The young lady couldn't help but ask. Although her anger was real, the kind-hearted young lady just liked to throw a tantrum. She didn't really want to harm anyone. Ninth Sister, don't be soft-hearted. Seeing that the young lady was about to be a good person again, the young man was afraid that she would do something stupid. As the saying goes, don't show off your wealth. Even without the Millennium Spirit Ointment, the amount of spirit stones that the owner of room 71 revealed just now would have attracted the greed of many people. Moreover, according to the style of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, the owner of room 71 must have an ordinary background and doesn't have a strong backing. So, the moment the auction ends is the moment this person will be besieged to death. Sigh. After hearing the young man's detailed explanation, the young lady couldn't help but sigh. Then, she looked at room 71 with a trace of worry in her eyes. Fallon, that guy really said that. In fact, when the price of the Millennium Spirit Ointment had exceeded 200 million, and only he and the young lady in room 1 were competing, Fallon had already used his divine telekinesis to observe the situation. After all, only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you win every battle. That's right, Fallon confirmed with a nod. Indeed, it's exactly the same as in my previous life. This guy still likes to backstab people. After receiving Fallon's confirmation, Yu Haoran sneered. But do I, Yu Haoran, look like someone who is so easily backstabbed? Seeing that room 71 had directly bid 500 million, Feng Yin looked expectantly at room 1, hoping that room 1 would continue to raise the price. However, after waiting for nearly 3 minutes and not hearing any bids from room 1, Feng Yun's face was filled with disappointment. Then, he looked at room 71 with eyes full of resentment. 4 taels of Millennium Spiritual Ointment, according to the market price, should be around 600 million. If the price of the Millennium Spiritual Ointment had increased by a few million, Feng Yun believed that the final price of the Millennium Spiritual Ointment would be at least 700 to 800 million. If he used some tricks in the dark, it was very likely that it would reach 1 billion. However, Yu Haoran directly raised the price by 100 million to 200 million, which not only disrupted the rhythm of the auction, but also made some competitive powerhouses have other ideas in their hearts. After the auction ended, Feng Yin didn't care about the life or death of the person in room 71. However, the bidding methods of the owner of private room number 71 had caused the auction house to suffer losses. Therefore, Feng Yin took advantage of the opportunity when the staff member took the Millennium Spirit Ointment and used his voice to condense into a needle to give the staff member a task. You want to investigate my identity and threaten me? Fallon, who had been keeping an eye on Feng Yun with his divine sense, successfully intercepted Feng Yun's instructions to the staff member and informed Yu Haoran. Black Bear, I have a task for you now. With a wave of his sleeve, he tossed Black Bear, who had been hiding in his sleeve, into the room. Afterwards, he gestured for Black Bear to come to his side and whispered in his ear, "These are 2 elixirs that can change your form and aura. Use them to change yourself." After instructing He Xiong, Yu Haoran immediately took out 2 dark-colored elixirs and gave them to He Xiong. Fallon, use your divine sense to help Black Bear conceal his aura fluctuations. Considering that Black Bear would remain in his exotic beast form, even if he changed his form, it would easily attract the attention of others. Therefore, Yu Haoran could only ask Fallon for help. Of course, while replying to Yu Haoran, a wave of divine sense landed on Black Bear's body. Yu Haoran glanced at Black Bear and closed his eyes to sense it. He nodded in satisfaction and gestured for Black Bear to leave the room. Rank 5, Grade 3 Mystical Ginseng Fruit. It can directly increase one's cultivation without any side effects. Rank 5, Grade 3 Mystical Ginseng Fruit. It can help a martial emperor to directly break through a small realm. It can also help a martial king to directly break through 2 small realms. Feng Yin opened the wooden box that Xiao Mei had brought up and adjusted his state of mind. He pointed at the spirit fruit in the box and introduced it. The starting price for the rank 5, grade 3 mystical ginseng fruit is 10 million rank 8, grade 1 spiritual stones. Each increment must not be less than 50,000 spiritual stones. The auction begins now. 13 million rank 8, grade 1 spiritual stones. 15 million rank 8, grade 1 spiritual stones. 16 million rank 8, grade 1 spiritual stones. The mystical ginseng fruit, which could increase one's cultivation without any side effects, immediately caused another round of frenzied bidding. However, Yu Haoran did not participate. Yu Haoran, are you not interested in the mystical ginseng fruit? Seeing that Yu Haoran did not participate in the bidding, Thowling asked in confusion. After all, with Yu Haoran's cultivation and alchemy, a top spirit fruit like the mystical ginseng fruit would definitely be able to refine higher quality and more effective pills. Logically speaking, he should not give up on competing. How can I not be interested? It's just that the time is not right. With a chuckle, Yu Haoran explained while paying attention to the rising bidding price. When the price of the mystical ginseng fruit reached 40 million spiritual stones, he directly shouted, 60 million rank 8, grade 1 spiritual stones. Directly raising the price by 20 million spiritual stones not only showed the wealth of the owner of Private Room 71, but also his determination to win. This made the people who wanted to continue bidding immediately give up. On the high platform, Feng Yin no longer cared about the gazes of the crowd. He stared angrily at Private Room 71. According to the market price, the mystical ginseng fruit was worth about 70 million spiritual stones. If it was auctioned, it should be able to sell for about 100 million spiritual stones. However, Yu Haoran's bid had caused the auction house to lose more than 30 million rank 8, grade 1 spiritual stones. How could this not anger Feng Yin? Consecrator Feng, no one has bid for 3 minutes. Are you still not going to announce the final owner of the mystical ginseng fruit? Ignoring Feng Yun's hateful gaze, Yu Haoran waited for 3 minutes before announcing loudly. Private Room 71 has successfully won the mystical ginseng fruit for 60 million rank 8, grade 1 spiritual stones. In his anger, Qin Yun had forgotten to count down and directly announced that the mystical ginseng fruit was won by Yu Haoran. Chapter 538. Hidden Art Loft, Auction Venue. 1 minute later, a beautiful young woman in a red corset dress walked up the stage. She had long black hair, a face as beautiful as a flower, and a devilish figure. Feng Yun bowed respectfully to the beautiful young woman, then walked down the stage and quickly left the auction venue. Ladies and gentlemen, as Elder Feng has some urgent matters to attend to, I will personally host the following auction. After Feng Yun walked down the stage, the beautiful young woman introduced him with a smile. My surname is Jiang, and my name is Yan. I am currently the deputy pavilion leader of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. Those who knew and were familiar with the beautiful young woman felt a little nervous when they heard that she would be hosting the following auction. After all, Jiang Yan was qualified to become the deputy pavilion leader of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion not only because of her cultivation, but also because of her outstanding business mind. Those who had only heard of the deputy pavilion leader of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, but had never seen her in person were nervous and excited. After carefully observing the beautiful young woman's appearance and temperament, Yu Haoran could not help but guess to himself. Could she be Zhao Sinyu's biological mother? After all, the deputy pavilion leader of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion was behind his conflicts with Zhao Sinyu and Zhao Ji. After hearing Yu Haoran's guess, Thowling suddenly thought of the special relationship between Zhao Xinyu and Zhao Ji and the deputy pavilion leader of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. She quickly used her divine thought to carefully observe Jiang Yan. After that, Thowling frowned and said, "You Howren, that's not right. This woman's aura has nothing to do with Zhao Xinyu, and she is a woman who has never given birth." After hearing Thowling's explanation, Yu Howren shook his head and continued to guess. Could I have guessed wrongly? Zhao Xinyu's mother is the deputy pavilion leader of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, who is as quiet as jade? Then he shook his head hard and threw the private matters about Zhao Xinyu and the deputy pavilion leader of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion out of his mind. He then continued to pay attention to the next auction item. Originally, according to the order of the auction in his previous life, the next item to be auctioned should be a purple flame sacred jade. However, when Jiang Yan removed the red cloth on the tray that Xiao Mei was carrying and revealed the pill bottle that he was incomparably familiar with, he knew that his actions had once again disrupted the following auction process. Yu Howren was already used to this. Ladies and gentlemen, this auction item was added at the last minute, because the pills in the pill bottle are very special. Jiang Yan smiled as she picked up the pill bottle on the tray and poured the pills into her palm. Deputy Pavilion Master Jiang. Although a 6th level, first-grade blood coagulation pill is considered a treasure, isn't it making a mountain out of a molehill by auctioning it? Although they were unable to use their divine sense to observe it, some of the masters present who were proficient in alchemy were still able to distinguish the specific origin and grade of this pill from the color and smell of the pill that Jiang Yan had poured into her palm. Therefore, some people began to question Jiang Yan. This friend who is proficient in alchemy is right. Jiang Yan nodded at the person in room 12 who questioned her and smiled. If it was just an ordinary 6th level, first-grade blood coagulation pill, it would indeed not be suitable to be auctioned. But what if this blood coagulation pill has been infused with crystal marrow? Pavilion Master Jiang, you said that this blood coagulation pill has been infused with crystal marrow. Hearing Jiang Yan's further explanation of the blood coagulation technique, a shocked voice immediately asked from room 12. That's right. Nodding, Jiang Yan reached out and brushed the hair in front of her forehead as she replied with a smile. I believe that the esteemed guest in room 12 must be an alchemy grandmaster from the Valley of the Medicine Masters. That's right. I am Xiang Wenxuan, and I am indeed from the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Not only was the owner of room 12 not angry that Jiang Yan had taken the initiative to expose his origins, he even introduced himself directly. Could it be that you are one of the 4 alchemy grandmasters of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Grandmaster Xiang Wenxuan, who is also known as the Broken Hand Pill Emperor? Jiang Yan could not help but ask in surprise after hearing the owner of room 12's self-introduction. It's just a false reputation. Xiang Wenxuan replied politely. Why is this old man here? Yu Howren, who had also heard Jiang Yan's shocking testimony, muttered to himself with a puzzled expression. In his previous life, due to his personality and mentality, he did not have a very friendly relationship with most of the factions. He had even formed a blood feud with many of them. But there were a few sects that were an exception. For example, the 5 Poison sect, which was founded on poison, the Weapon Refining sect, which was founded on weapons, and so on. But the one with the closest relationship, which was also the most complicated, was the Valley of the Medicine Masters, because he had entered martial arts with poison and Tao with alchemy. Although most of the alchemy techniques he was proficient in were poison pills, due to his astonishing talent in alchemy and the Valley of the Medicine Masters' aloof personality, they had a very close relationship with each other. Especially with 3 of the 4 alchemy grandmasters of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, their relationship was very good. Xiang Wenxuan, who was in private room 12, was one of them. Since you are the Broken Hand Pill Emperor, then I'll have to trouble you to personally examine this pill to prove that I am not lying. Jiang Yan asked Xiang Wenxuan for guidance after gesturing for Sister Qiao to take the blood coagulation pill. No problem. Xiang Wenxuan readily agreed to Jiang Yan's request. Deputy Pavilion Leader Jiang is right. This 6th level, first-grade blood coagulation pill does indeed contain the crystal marrow of a 5th level, upper-grade spirit meridian. After receiving the blood coagulation pill from Sister Qiao, Xiang Wenxuan carefully examined it 3 times and finally confirmed that what Jiang Yan had said was true. At the same time, he also expressed his own opinion. Moreover, the person who integrated the crystal marrow into the blood coagulation pill is definitely a person of extraordinary cultivation. It is very likely that he is a peerless master of the martial honor realm. After hearing the personal confirmation of the peak alchemy grandmaster from the Valley of the Medicine Masters and revealing even more shocking news, both the young man in Room 1 and Lu Guangyuan in Room 3 revealed a strong desire to possess the pill. Yu Haoran, this peak alchemy grandmaster by the name of Xiang Wenxuan, is not only outstanding in his alchemy skills and has the potential to become an alchemy grandmaster in the future, but his eyesight is also very sharp. He was actually able to accurately deduce my strength through the method of integrating the crystal marrow. Faling, who had also heard Xiang Wenxuan's opinion, couldn't help but exclaim, "Faling, that old man, is actually not as powerful as you think." Seeing that Faling was completely shocked by Xiang Wenxuan's methods, Yu Haoran explained with a smile, "That old man was able to deduce your strength, not because his eyesight is so good, but because he has a pair of special eyes. A pair of eyes that can distinguish the origin of power. Eyes that can distinguish the origin of power." After hearing Yu Haoran's reminder, Faling immediately used his divine thought to carefully observe Xiang Wenxuan's eyes. Chapter 539. Hidden Art Pavilion, Auction Venue. "Faling, what's wrong with you?" Yu Haoran couldn't help but ask when he sensed Faling's gasp of shock. "Yu Haoran, don't disturb me. Let me think about it calmly." Faling gestured to Yu Haoran not to disturb him for the time being. He closed his eyes and began to look through the memories of the previous weapon spirit. Faling's serious look made Yu Haoran gradually come to his senses. It seemed that in his previous life, he had always thought that Xiang Wenxuan's eyes were special eyes with a certain auxiliary function. It was very likely that they hid a shocking origin. Therefore, Yu Haoran quickly shut up and didn't disturb Faling. He wanted to let him recall the origin of Xiang Wenxuan's eyes. Everyone, the true value of the 6th level, first-grade blood coagulation elixir that has been infused with crystal marrow has been clearly explained by the Pill Emperor from the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Crystal marrow can only be nurtured by a 5th-level superior spirit vein. I'm sure everyone knows what kind of heaven-defying effects it has. Therefore, the starting price of the 6th-level first-grade blood coagulation elixir that has been infused with crystal marrow will be 50 million 8th-level first-grade spirit stones. Each increment must be no less than 100,000 spirit stones. The auction begins now. Hearing that Jiang Yan's lowest starting price for the blood coagulation elixir was an astonishing 50 million 8th-level first-grade spirit stones, while Yu Haoran was shocked, he also couldn't help but admire her extraordinary methods. Using the confidence that the Pill Emperor, who was at the pinnacle of the Pill Tao, had given to the crowd, she raised the temptation of the crystal marrow with ambiguous rhetorical questions. Therefore, even if Jiang Yan had directly raised the price of the blood coagulation elixir by 50 million spirit stones, everyone present would have fought for it with all their might. "Everyone, please wait for a moment." Just as Jiang Yan announced the start of the auction, Xiang Wenxuan from private room number 12 suddenly spoke up to stop the bidding and then assured the crowd, "With my mastery of the Pill Tao, I can completely extract the crystal marrow from the blood coagulation elixir without damaging it. Therefore, no matter who ends up with this 6th-level, first-grade blood coagulation elixir, I can help him extract it for free. Thank you for your selfless help, hand-breaking Pill Emperor." After hearing Xiang Wenxuan's promise, Jiang Yan was so happy that she almost laughed out loud. The starting price was set at 50 million, and only the VIPs in the private rooms were qualified to bid. The reason why the VIPs in the private rooms were willing to bid was because of the crystal marrow fused into the blood coagulation pill. Xiang Wenxuan's assurance that he could extract the crystal marrow from the pill gave these experts the confidence to bid crazily. As the host of the auction, how could Jiang Yin not be excited? After all, the higher the bidding price of the blood coagulation pill that had been infused with crystal marrow, not only would it increase the profits of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, but it would also increase her reputation. Of course, the ultimate beneficiary of Xiang Wenxuan's promise to separate the marrow crystals for free was not Jiang Yin, but Yu Haoran from room number 71. After all, the higher the final price of the blood coagulation pill, the more spirit stones Yu Haoran would get in the end. This old man is still as cute as before. Looking through the transparent glass in front of him, Yu Haoran looked at room number 12 with a smile on his face and teased him softly. 100 million 8th grade, 1st grade spirit stones. After receiving Xiang Wenxuan's guarantee, the young man in room number 1, who had been determined to get the blood coagulation pill, immediately doubled the bidding price. The reason why he doubled the bidding price was that he was learning from Yu Haoran. This was because the young man in room 1 had discovered that the reason why Yu Haoran was able to win every auction was because he would bid twice, or even thrice the price of the items being auctioned. This way, he could give others a sense of pressure that they were determined to win. Unfortunately, the young man in room number 1 had only seen how forthright Yu Haoran was when he bid, but had not noticed the timing and means of his bidding. Therefore, after doubling the bidding price of 100 million, the young man, who was full of joy and thought that the blood coagulation pill would be his, was quickly slapped in the face by reality. 110 million 8th grade, 1st grade spirit stones. Damn it! The young man in room number 1 could only curse and grit his teeth as he looked at the person who had taken the initiative to compete with him. With his identity and status, as well as the home advantage, even the Yushu Temple, the leader of the 7 top sects, had to consider his existence before bidding. However, the person who had made the bid just now was the handless elixir emperor, Xiang Wenxuan, who had selflessly given his guarantee. This made it impossible for the young man to use his identity to intimidate others, and he could not take revenge after the event. After all, the Valley of the Medicine Masters, which was proficient in the art of alchemy, was one of the top powers in the Tianxian continent that no one wanted to provoke. Moreover, a peak grandmaster in the art of alchemy represented a power in itself, a power that did not lose out to a first-rate sect. If he dared to take revenge on Xiang Wenxuan after the event, his chances of success would be very low. If his brothers found out about this, he was afraid that not only would he lose the opportunity to fight for that position in the future, but his life might also be in danger. Therefore, other than cursing and gritting his teeth, he could only use the higher bidding price to fight for the blood coagulation elixir that had been infused with the crystal marrow. Xiang Wenxuan's bid seemed to have broken the awe-inspiring atmosphere in room number 1. The owners of the other rooms all began to compete. 130 million 8th grade, 1st grade spirit stones. 150 million 8th grade, 1st grade spirit stones. In just 30 seconds, the price of the blood coagulation elixir that had been infused with the crystal marrow had broken through the 300 million mark. The rising price showed no signs of slowing down. Ninth sister, lend me the spirit stones you have on you. I will pay you back double after the event. Although 300 million 8th grade, 1st grade spirit stones were nothing to the young man, he had not expected that a blood coagulation elixir that had been infused with the crystal marrow would appear in the auction. Moreover, it had been infused with the crystal marrow personally by a martial honorable. Therefore, he did not have many spirit stones with him. Helpless, he could only turn to his sister for help. Third brother, there are about 300 million spirit stones in here. Here you go. In response to the young man's request, the young girl took off the storage bracelet on her wrist without hesitation and handed it to the young man. Ninth sister, thank you. After thanking her and taking the storage bracelet, the young man was ready to go all out and push the bidding price to a sky-high price. 500 million 8th grade, 1st grade spirit stones. However, before he could make a bid, Lu Guangyuan from room number 3 made a sky-high bid. 500 million. This was the highest bid in the auction that had been going on for more than half the time. Chapter 540. In the auction hall of the Hidden Art Pavilion. Third brother, are you all right? The young lady asked worriedly when she saw that the young man's face had turned red and his murderous aura was rising. Phew! The young man took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. His expression quickly returned to normal. He returned the storage bracelet that the young lady had lent him and indicated that he was fine. Ninth sister, I'm fine. I just couldn't control my emotions. The young man swore to himself as he stared at room 3 through the transparent glass in front of him. Lu, you better pray that the blood coagulation pill doesn't fall into your hands. Otherwise, Xianyang City will be your burial ground. This day, next year, will be the anniversary of your death. Other than the young man and the young lady in room number 1, the only other person who could intimidate the crowd was Lu Guangyuan from room number 3. Furthermore, to a certain extent, Lu Guangyuan's threat was far greater than the young man's. After all, the Yushu Temple's tyrannical reputation had been tarnished in the past 100 years. Jiang Yin could deeply feel what Feng Yin had felt earlier when she saw Lu Guangyuan raise the bid to 500 million. She could feel the anger that had accumulated in her heart, but she couldn't vent it. This was because of the special relationship between the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion and the Yushu Temple. If Lu Guangyuan won the bid for the blood coagulation pill, the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion wouldn't dare to ask him for 500 million spirit stones. The blood coagulation pill that had been infused with the crystal marrow was only an item that the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion had auctioned on behalf of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. They could only take a commission of 1% of the final price. In other words, apart from not being able to ask Lu Guangyuan for 500 million spirit stones, they would have to pay the owner of the blood coagulation pill more than 400 million spirit stones out of their own pocket. This loss was as high as 1 billion spirit stones. If she wasn't the deputy pavilion master and held the highest position in the entire Hidden Art Pavilion, she would have probably found someone to replace her and left just like Feng Yin had. Since she couldn't leave due to the circumstances, she could only hope that someone would bid higher than Lu Guangyuan's bid. As she thought of this, Jiang Yin looked expectantly at room 71. This was because the only one who truly had the financial strength to compete with the Yushu Temple's Lu Guangyuan seemed to be the mysterious room 71. In fact, Jiang Yin was not the only one. Everyone in the hall, including the owners of the other 70-plus private rooms, was looking at private room number 71 at the same time. They were waiting for the owner of private room number 71 to make a shocking bid. Although the people in room 71 couldn't see his face due to the obstruction of the private room, Yu Haoran didn't like the feeling of being stared at like this. Moreover, he had entrusted the blood coagulation pill with the crystal marrow to the auction house of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. How could he spend so many spirit stones on it? Therefore, in order to prevent himself from being the center of attention, Yu Haoran directly expressed his attitude. I'm not interested in the blood coagulation pill or the crystal marrow. Therefore, I won't bid for the blood coagulation pill. When she heard Yu Haoran say that he wouldn't bid for the blood coagulation pill, Jiang Yan's face was filled with disappointment. Lu Guangyuan, who was in private room number 3, secretly heaved a sigh of relief. As long as the unpredictable owner of private room number 71 didn't bid, Lu Guangyuan had absolute confidence that he would win the blood coagulation pill, even if it meant offending the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. The crystal marrow in the blood coagulation pill was too important to him. It was so important that he could completely change his own destiny. Crystal marrow can only be produced by an upper level, 5 spiritual vein that has developed its own consciousness and is willing to consume 20 to 30% of its stored energy. An upper level, 5 spiritual vein with its own consciousness and 20 to 30% of its stored energy is equivalent to nearly 10 billion level, 8 spirit stones. If the blood coagulation pill with the crystal marrow can be obtained at a price of 500 million, it would be a blasphemy to such a precious treasure. Originally, When Yu Haoran said that he wouldn't bid for the blood coagulation pill, everyone present thought that Elder Lu from the Yushu Temple would win the blood coagulation pill. However, Xiang Wenxuan's indignant questioning immediately attracted everyone's attention. Xiang Wenxuan's next bid made everyone's expression change. Therefore, I bid 1 billion level, 8 spirit stones. I'm going to vomit blood. Did this old man take the wrong medicine? Why is he bidding for the blood coagulation pill? After hearing that Xiang Wenxuan was going to bid 1 billion spirit stones, Yu Haoran was so angry that he stood up from his chair and complained. He had a very good relationship with Xiang Wenxuan in his previous life, and he didn't want his friend to suffer a loss. Furthermore, although Xiang Wenxuan's evaluation of the crystal marrow was not wrong, and the crystal marrow produced by the upper level 5 spirit vein was indeed worth around 10 billion spirit stones, it referred to all the crystal marrow produced, not just 1,000th of the crystal marrow. Jiang Yin, who had already planned to suffer a loss, heard Xiang Wenxuan double the price, and the depression in her heart was instantly swept away. Her eyes were filled with gratitude as she glanced at private room number 12. Then, she sped up the countdown. She was worried that Lu Guangyuan, who was in room 3, would continue to bid in the same way. 1 billion level, 8 spirit stones, going once. 1 billion level, 8 spirit stones, going twice. Just as Jiang Yin raised her left hand and was about to announce the final owner of the blood coagulation pill, another bid was heard from room 3. 5 billion level, 8 spirit stones. 5 billion. If all of them were exchanged for level 8 spirit stones, it would fill up the entire auction house. The price of such a large number of spirit stones had far exceeded everyone's expectations. Furthermore, 5 billion spirit stones was not only one of the top 100 most expensive items auctioned in the Tianxian continent, but it also broke the record of the highest bid since the establishment of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion auction house. However, to Jiang Yin, 5 billion spirit stones was a price that she, as the deputy pavilion leader, could not afford to lose. Esteemed guest in room 3, the price of the blood coagulation pill has broken the record of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion auction house. Just as Jiang Yin was about to lose 5 billion spirit stones, Feng Yun, who had just left the auction house, returned to the stage. First, he patted Jiang Yin's shoulder lightly, indicating for her to leave. Then, he looked at room 3 and questioned in a tone full of suspicion. According to the rules of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion auction house, we need to verify if you have the ability to pay. Chapter 541. Hidden Art Pavilion, Auction Venue. I wouldn't dare. In the face of Lu Guangyuan's gloomy question, although Feng Yun said he didn't dare, he didn't hide the disdainful smile on his face. This meant that he suspected that Lu Guangyuan didn't have that many spirit stones on him. He was questioning Lu Guangyuan's malicious intentions. However, because the price of the blood coagulation pill is too high, I have to check it myself according to the rules of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. Good, very good. Seeing Feng Yun's tough attitude, Lu Guangyuan was so angry that he laughed and said, "Good." Bam! Then, the sound of a table being smashed came from room 3, followed by Lu Guangyuan's threatening voice. Let's see if you dare to enter the room to check it out. Since the guest in room 3 refuses to check it out, as the auctioneer of this auction, I, Feng Yun, declare that the previous auction is invalid. Seeing that Lu Guangyuan was acting shamelessly, how could the shrewd Feng Yun enter the room? He laughed coldly. Then, to everyone's surprise, he canceled the auction of the 6th order, first-grade blood coagulation pill. In the history of auctions in the Tianxian continent, this was not the first time an auction had canceled an ongoing auction. However, this was definitely the first time in hundreds of years. Just the fact that the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion had canceled the auction at the last minute was enough to cause an unimaginable commotion. How dare you? Lu Guangyuan shouted angrily. How dare Feng Yun cancel the blood coagulation pill that he had won with great difficulty? Everyone, according to the starting price given by Deputy Pavilion Leader Jiang and the starting price of each auction. I now announce that the auction for the 6th Order, first-grade blood coagulation pill that has been infused with crystal marrow will be restarted. Ignoring the enraged Lu Guangyin, Feng Yun followed the auction procedures and started a new round of bidding for the blood coagulation pill. 300 million 8th Order, first-grade spirit stones. If other people were afraid of the Yushu Temple's revenge, they would not dare to follow Feng Yun's lead. However, they were not afraid of the young man in Room 1. Instead, they admired and supported Feng Yun's actions. The guest in Room 1 has already bid 300 million spirit stones. I wonder if there are any other friends who would like to bid? Feng Yun, who had long expected that Room 1 would be the first to bid, couldn't help but smile with a smug look on his face. Then, he shouted with all his might, filled with passion. Since the more powerful private room number 1 had attracted the hatred of the Yushu Temple Elder, the people in the remaining private rooms did not have to worry about revenge. They all began to bid. Although the bidding for the blood coagulation pill was not as high as the first round, the final price was still more than 700 million, and it was successfully won by the person in Room 5. Compared to the first bid of 1.5 billion, although the second bid was less than half, Yu Haoran didn't feel the slightest pity. Instead, he nodded with satisfaction. After all, the blood coagulation pills that had been fused with marrow crystals didn't end up in the hands of his friends or enemies. He wouldn't cheat his friends, nor would he allow his enemies to improve their strength with the marrow crystals. Moreover, the reopening of the auction for the blood coagulation pill had caused a rift between the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion and the Yushu Temple. The value of this rift couldn't be compared to 800 million or 1 billion spirit stones. Ever since the sound of the table breaking had been heard and the bidding for the blood coagulation pill had ended, there had been no further movement from Room 3. This puzzled everyone present. The Yushu Temple wasn't supposed to swallow their anger. So what was Elder Lu from the Yushu Temple doing now? Inside Room 3. At this moment, Lu Guangyuan's complexion was as pale as his white hair, completely devoid of blood. His resentful gaze was fixed on Feng Yun, who was standing on the high platform through the glass. This was because he had never thought that the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, which was secretly affiliated with the Hollow Jade Palace, whose life and death depended entirely on the Hollow Jade Palace, would not only go against his wishes, but also openly threaten him. Although he was just an ordinary elder of the Yushu Temple, anyone who was familiar with the Yushu Temple would not dare treat him like an ordinary elder. Feng Yun, who had won the auction and wouldn't suffer any losses to the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, was pleased with himself. As he watched the staff take away the bottle containing the blood coagulation pill, the resentment in Lu Guangyuan's eyes was gradually replaced by boundless fury. Feng Yun, Jiang Yin, the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, just you wait. Lu Guangyun stood up and glared at Feng Yun, who was standing on the high platform, as he muttered to himself through gritted teeth. Then, he turned around and left Room 3. He left the auction hall, the Hidden Art Pavilion, and Xianyang City. Lu Guangyuan had no intention of hiding when he left. Thus, the staff at the auction hall had immediately noticed his departure and hurriedly informed Feng Yun. Feng Yun only sneered in response. A cold glint flashed across his eyes as he started to prepare for the next item. Sacred Purple Flame Jade. It can contain 50% to 70% of a martial sage's nomological aura. It is the most suitable sacred jade in the Tianxian continent to refine life-saving jade pendants. Feng Yun pointed at a piece of jade emitting a scorching aura on the tray that Xiao Mei was holding. The starting price of the Sacred Purple Flame Jade is 10 million 8th level first-grade spirit stones. Each bid must be at least 50,000 spirit stones. The auction begins now. Whether it was the experts of the top forces or those who cultivated alone, who didn't have descendants and disciples who valued inheritance, how to ensure the safety of their descendants and disciples was the most troublesome thing for these experts and experts. The Sacred Purple Flame Jade, which could contain 50% to 70% of a martial sage's nomological aura, was the best way to solve this problem. Thus, after Feng Yun announced the start of the auction, the enthusiasm of the crowd was no less than when they were fighting for the blood coagulation pill. However, Yu Haoran had no intention of participating in the competition for the sacred purple flame jade. The reason was that he didn't need to use the sacred purple flame jade to refine a life-saving jade pendant. Also, the information that Thaling was revealing made his mind not on the sacred purple flame jade. Thaling, old man Xiang's eyes are really the legendary divine eyes of that race. Yu Haoran asked in disbelief. According to Thaling's careful memories, after the Ancient Age was destroyed, before the Middle Age was completely formed, the entire world was in an environment where stars were colliding and spiritual energy was tyrannical. A special race appeared between the heavens and the earth. The appearance and structure of this race were very similar to the current human race. However, their bodies were like strange beasts. All of them were giants over 100 meters tall. Moreover, the people of this race all had an extra eye on their foreheads. Chapter 542. Due to some delays, the 5th chapter will be postponed till after 9 o'clock. Hidden Art Pavilion, Auction Venue. Based on the different physiques at birth, the eyes of every member of the mysterious race had different functions. Some eyes could shoot out the light of destruction, directly destroying everything that the eyes could see. Some eyes could shoot out the light of life, giving birth to new life out of thin air. Some eyes could shoot out the light of illusion, seeing through all illusions in the world. Some eyes could shoot out the light of origin, seeing through the essence of the world, etc. According to Thaling's speculation, Xiang Wenxuan's eyes were very likely inherited from the bloodline of that mysterious race. His eyes had a trace of the eye of origin that could see through the essence of the world. Even more coincidentally, when Yu Haoran was adventuring in his previous life, he had accidentally stumbled upon a ruin left behind from an unknown era. In that ruin, there was not much information left behind, and it just so happened to record the mysterious race that Thaling had just mentioned. Therefore, regarding Thaling's speculation, Yu Haoran was very convinced. Yu Haoran, when you feel that your cultivation and strength are enough to return to that ruin, I hope that you can bring Xiang Wenxuan with you. After hearing Yu Haoran reveal the ruin that he accidentally stumbled upon in his previous life, Thaling thought for a moment, then suggested, because I suspect that in that ruin, it is very likely that the secrets of that race's eyes are hidden. Even if by chance, you might be able to inherit a certain ability of that mysterious race's divine eyes. If you can use the divine eyes to transform into the power of law, you will have the capital to break through to the martial god realm in the future. Okay. Nodding his head, Yu Haoran agreed to Thaling's suggestion, and he could not help but miss the void spirit mouse in his heart. Because of all the ruins that he had explored in his previous life, nearly 90% of them were explored with the help of the void spirit mouse. Without the help of the void spirit mouse, not to mention entering those dangerous ruins where one could lose one's life at any time, he might not even be able to find the specific location of those ruins. Therefore, Yu Haoran planned to rush to the mountain range as soon as possible after his cultivation broke through the martial arts grandmaster realm to see if he could meet the empty spirit mouse in advance. Everyone, this is an inheritance jade slip that has never been opened before. Does this jade slip record earth rank and heaven rank mental mantras, martial skills with heaven-defying might, or even secret techniques that might allow you to challenge those of a higher rank? I'm very sorry. Feng Yun, don't know, so I can't give you an accurate answer. Just as Yu Haoran was thinking about the empty spirit mouse, Feng Yun, who had successfully auctioned off 2 items in a row, took out a simple jade slip and gave an evaluation that everyone found hard to accept. Consecrator, what if the inheritance in this jade slip is just a piece of useless information? What's the point of us spending so many spiritual stones on it? The owner of room 53 questioned in a dissatisfied tone. This esteemed guest is right. After confirming the other party's doubts, Feng Yun explained. It is precisely because our auction house is unable to provide you with accurate information that after discussion with Vice Pavilion Master Jiang and I, we have decided to offer the lowest starting price of this inheritance jade slip since the establishment of the auction house, 1/8 tier first-grade spirit stone. Moreover, the starting price of each auction will also be one first-grade spiritual stone of the 8th step. After hearing the starting price and increment of the inheritance jade slip, the room instantly fell silent. Then, everyone stared at the inheritance jade slip on the tray. In truth, the inheritance jade slip was now a gambling item. It all depended on whether one dared to take the risk. Just as Feng Yun was introducing the inheritance jade slip, Thowling felt that the inheritance jade slip on the tray was extremely familiar. After using his divine sense to sense his and Yu Haoran's remnant auras, he immediately recognized the origin of this inheritance jade slip. Thus, he asked in confusion, "Yu Haoran, why did you put the inheritance jade slip up for auction?" Thowling, this inheritance jade slip is very special. It may be a hidden danger if I keep it with me. Just take the opportunity to get rid of it during the auction, Yu Haoran replied solemnly. Hearing the trace of fear in Yu Haoran's voice, Thowling hurriedly asked, "What's the matter?" "It's like this." In fact, on the way to Xianyang City after leaving Lonling City, Yu Haoran had been sorting out his recent gains and had discovered the inheritance jade slip that he had obtained from the shop that had not been opened yet. Originally, he had wanted to accept the inheritance jade slip on the spot and see what was recorded in the inheritance jade slip. However, just as his divine sense touched the inheritance jade slip, a fatal sense of danger welled up in his heart. Yu Haoran had always believed in his telepathy, whether it was in his previous life or in this life. Thus, he had decisively given up on accepting the inheritance jade slip and wanted to throw it away on the spot. However, because he had just left Lonling City and Gao Wanping and Gong Yiyuan were not far from him, he was worried that the inheritance jade slip would be discovered and taken away by them. Therefore, he simply placed the inheritance jade slip in his storage bag. When he was trading with the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, he remembered to make good use of it and handed the inheritance jade slip to the auction house as an auction item. Yu Haoran, you did the right thing. After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, Thowling was very pleased and praised him. Telepathy is actually a kind of reward from the law of heaven for martial artists who have embarked on a heaven-defying cultivation. When most martial artists encounter danger, their telepathy will warn them in advance. And because of your rebirth, your telepathy is dozens of times stronger than ordinary martial artists. Since the inheritance jade slip gave you a fatal sense of danger, it means that the inheritance jade slip does not only contain the contents of the inheritance jade slip. There must be something else. That's right. Yu Haoran nodded in agreement with Thowling's deduction, and at the same time stated his ultimate goal. Thowling, the reason why I took out the inheritance jade slip for auction, in addition to using the inheritance jade slip to earn a sum of spirit stones, is that I hope you can use your divine sense to monitor the person who obtains the inheritance jade slip. I want to see what kind of secret is hidden in the inheritance jade slip that can bring me fatal danger. No problem. Thowling nodded in agreement. Just as Yu Haoran and Thowling were discussing the inheritance jade slip, the starting price of the inheritance jade slip was only 1/8 grade first-grade spirit stone. After the initial test by the crowd, the bidding price immediately soared. Because the starting price was only 1 spirit stone at the beginning, even some people in the hall who originally did not have the capital and qualifications to participate in the auction began to participate in the bidding. This caused the bidding atmosphere in the entire auction house to reach a climax and gradually fall into a state of madness. In just 3 minutes, the inheritance jade slip broke through the barrier of 20 million spirit stones from the initial price of 1/8 grade first-grade spirit stone. Chapter 543. Hidden Art Pavilion, Auction Venue. Yu Haoran. It looks like this Feng Yun fellow's understanding and manipulation of human nature isn't any less than yours. seeing the increasingly frenzied crowd participating in the auction for the inheritance jade slip, Thales heard the rising price of spirit stones. Thales couldn't help but sigh as he looked up at Feng Yun, who was standing on the high platform with a smug expression on his face. "That's right." Yu Haoran nodded and said with a solemn expression. At the beginning, he used greedy methods to gradually stimulate the gambling and adventurous nature of humans. Then, he used the irrationality of the herd effect to make them completely lose their rationality and fall into a frenzy. I think that the inheritance jade slip will be auctioned off for an unimaginable price in the end. Moreover, Feng Yun, who is adept at manipulating human nature, will definitely become an extremely frightening and difficult expert to deal with in the future. As the price of the inheritance jade slip passed 40 million, the frenzied bidding still showed no signs of calming down. And when the price of the inheritance jade slip passed 100 million, those in the auction hall who didn't have the financial resources to bid were affected by the frenzied atmosphere. Like bloodthirsty gamblers, they recklessly offered exorbitant amounts of spirit stones that they simply couldn't afford. It was even possible that they would never be able to earn in their lifetime. Yu Haoran, something's not right. When the price of the inheritance jade slip broke the 300 million mark, the frenzied bidding did not show any signs of abating. Instead, it became even more frenzied. Thales frowned as he sensed that something was wrong with the atmosphere. There's a faint smell of blood. After hearing Thales' warning, Yu Haoran first glanced at the frenzied crowd in the hall. Then, he walked to the door of the private room and opened a crack. He immediately smelled a very faint smell of blood in the air. Thales, the source of the smell of blood, seems to be that inheritance jade slip. Through the crack in the door, Yu Haoran discovered that not only had the crowd gone crazy, but even the auction staff had entered the bidding for the inheritance jade slip with bloodshot eyes. Thus, Yu Haoran, who didn't have to worry about exposing himself, walked out of the room and stood in the hall. Using his keen sense of smell, he traced the faint smell of blood in the hall. Yu Haoran, hurry back. Just as Yu Haoran used his keen sense of smell to discover that the source of the smell of blood came from the inheritance jade slip, Thales also discovered the abnormality of the inheritance jade slip and hurriedly warned him. After returning to the private room, Yu Haoran stared fixedly at the inheritance jade slip on the tray. He asked, "Thales, what exactly is hidden within the inheritance jade slip?" "It should be a remnant, soul fragments, soul's soul. Because the smell of blood in the inheritance jade slip could affect one's emotions and control one's mind. Even Thales, whose soul had recovered to the level of a martial venerable, dared not take the risk of using his divine mind to enter the inheritance jade slip. Therefore, his tone when answering Yu Haoran was not so certain. "Thales, what should we do next?" Yu Haoran asked anxiously when he saw that not only had the crowd in the hall gone crazy, but even the private room, which could isolate divine mind and aura, had also been affected by the inheritance jade slip and had fallen into a frenzy of bidding. This, in fact, after discovering the abnormality of the inheritance jade slip, he had immediately used his divine mind to perform a secret technique that could clear one's chi and concentrate one's mind, hoping that the secret technique could calm the people who had fallen into madness. But it was useless. Then, while Yu Haoran was using his keen sense of smell to trace the source of the smell of blood, Thales secretly used the top elixir that he had stored in the victor, which could calm one's chi and concentrate one's mind. But it was still useless. Therefore, in the face of Yu Haoran's request for help, Thales did not know what to do. Seeing that even the omniscient Thales could not do anything, Yu Haoran, who had been anxious, forced himself to calm down and then carefully thought about the methods he had at his disposal to see if he had a way to solve the current predicament. For some reason, just as he was about to check if he had a way to remove the bewitching effect of the inheritance jade slip, a book emitting golden light flew out of the storage ring, following his divine mind. Then, the book emitting golden light instantly appeared in midair in the hall, and then the book automatically burst into flames. Accompanied by the flames produced by the book, a bald phantom about 5 meters tall with golden light all over its body sat cross-legged in the flames. Feeling the evil energy in the air that affected one's mind, the bald phantom opened its eyes slightly, and in its illusory eyes, there was a look of compassion for the common people. Then, the bald phantom closed its eyes, and its lips trembled rapidly, and one golden word after another came out of its mouth. Yin Kirin, Yin Palin, all Buddhas appear. Sha Luo Shun, Hu Luo Shun, recite Buddha 1,000 times, ghosts leave the body leaves the bed, illness leaves the body, all disasters turn to dust. Every golden word that came out of the bald phantom's mouth would automatically merge into the inheritance jade slip. Every time a golden word merged into the inheritance jade slip, the crazy state of the people present would be cleared up a little, and the smell of blood in the air would also fade a little. After the two golden words dust merged into the inheritance jade slip, not only did the smell of blood in the air completely disappear, even the crazed crowd had completely calmed down. 3 billion 8th level, first grade spirit stones. Even though the power of the inheritance jade slip that affected one's emotions and mind was completely sealed by the golden words that the bald illusory figure spat out, the owner of room 9 was still affected by the last bit of power, and due to inertia, he took the opportunity to shout out an unimaginable price. However, Yu Haoran's attention wasn't focused on the 3 billion bid for the inheritance jade slip. Instead, he was anxiously looking at the bald phantom floating in the air and sitting cross-legged in a cross-legged position. This was because as the people in the auction hall woke up, the dazzling golden light emitted by the bald phantom would definitely attract their attention. Among the people present, there were probably no less than 20 martial sages. Therefore, Yu Haoran was worried that the dazzling bald phantom would cause these people to fight over it, and in the end, cause him to lose the gift that his teacher had given him. However, to Yu Haoran's surprise, no matter how dazzling the golden light emitted by the bald phantom was, the people in the hall and the private rooms did not seem to notice it. They were just exclaiming about the 3 billion price that the 9th private room had bid. What shocked Yu Haoran even more was that the people in the hall and the private rooms did not show any abnormalities when they were in a state of madness just now. It was as if what had happened just now was just an illusion, and everything was wrong. Chapter 544. Hidden Art Pavilion, Auction Hall. Just as Yu Haoran was shocked that the crowd had forgotten their crazy actions, Thaling's surprised voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Thaling, what's wrong? Yu Haoran quickly asked. Yu Haoran, something's not right. Why did the evil remnant soul in the jade slip disappear? Thaling asked in confusion. Also, why did the crazy crowd suddenly calm down? Thaling's two puzzle questions made Yu Haoran's heart surge with shock. Even the tower spirit, whose divine soul had been restored to martial venerable, did not notice the bald shadow that was emitting a dazzling light in mid-air in the auction hall. It also did not notice the method that the bald shadow had used to seal the inheritance jade slip. This meant that the bald shadow, sitting cross-legged in the air, was very likely to have reached the Emperor Realm, or even a peerless treasure beyond the Emperor Realm. Of course, it could be the same as Thaling, the spirit of a magic weapon. It could also be the same as the jade slip, a remnant soul hidden in the golden book. Just as Yu Haoran was guessing the bald shadow's origin, the bald shadow, sitting cross-legged in the air, slowly opened its eyes. It first glanced at the jade slip, then turned to look at Yu Haoran. How to put it? From the bald shadow's eyes, Yu Haoran saw the compassion of all living beings, the belief of saving all living beings, the kindness of human nature, the evil of human nature, the love of human nature, and the hatred of human nature. In short, from the bald shadow's eyes, Yu Haoran felt a kind of universal love for all living beings. Do you understand now? The bald man asked kindly. Understand. Nodding, Yu Haoran replied solemnly. Can you do it? The bald shadow continued to ask. Yu Haoran lowered his head and fell in a deep thought when faced with the bald shadow's second question. After pondering for a short while, Howren raised his head to look at the bald shadow and replied in a firm tone, "I'm sorry, but I can't do it. If you can do it, you can receive my inheritance and ascend to the throne in the future." In the face of Howren's firm refusal, the bald phantom's expression did not change at all. His face was still filled with kindness as he gave his promise. "Even without your inheritance, I can ascend to the throne." Howren replied confidently, "If you can accept my inheritance, you will definitely become a god in the future." Faced with Howren's confident reply, the bald phantom continued to offer an irresistible temptation. What's the point of obtaining the deity position if you lose your original heart and abandon your original intentions? Howren was not tempted in the slightest. His tone was even filled with a trace of mockery as he retorted, "If you can accept my inheritance, you can protect your family and friends forever without any worries." In the face of Howren's mockery, the bald phantom's expression did not change at all. He was still filled with kindness as he further enlightened and tempted Howren from a human's point of view. "I can break the blue sky with my sharp sword, break the blue dome with my hands, and protect my family with my blood. Why would I need your inheritance?" Howren was exuding strong confidence as he retorted. Sigh. In the face of Howren, who was not tempted at all, the bald phantom sighed. He put away the kindness on his face and said coldly, "If you don't accept my inheritance, you will definitely die in my hands in the future." Hearing the bald phantom's death threat, Howren just chuckled at first. Gradually, his chuckle turned into a wild laughter. "Huh? Why are you laughing?" Faced with Howren's inexplicable wild laughter, the bald phantom asked puzzledly. "When a map is unrolled, the dagger is revealed." Putting away his smile, Howren also scolded indifferently. "Fake pity, fake compassion, fake salvation. A person like you can still see through life and death and become a god in the future. Bah!" Speaking of this, Howren snorted contemptuously. His tone was full of disdain and sarcasm. "Baldy, even if you kneel in front of me now and beg me to accept your inheritance, I will ignore you." In the face of Howren's scornful sarcasm, the bald phantom's originally cold face was replaced by kindness again. At the same time, he slowly closed his eyes. The dazzling golden light emitted from his body gradually began to converge. "Little friend, let time bear witness to all of this." When all the golden light had merged into the bald shadow's body, the bald shadow left behind a sentence and then suddenly exploded. Countless golden lights gathered together to form a book that was emitting a golden light. After the golden book was reassembled, Howren suddenly felt his divine thoughts stir slightly. The golden book that was originally floating in the air returned to his storage ring. It seems that after helping Master detoxify the poison of the 7 insects and 7 flowers powder, I must ask him where he got this mind-cleansing spell. Staring at the golden book lying in the storage ring with his divine thoughts, Howren secretly made up his mind. Howren, it seems that the owner of private room number 9 is going to go back on his word. He did not know what kind of magic the bald phantom possessed. Not only did it make the people in the auction completely forget about their crazy state just now, even Thaling, who had the body of a high-level martial revered soul, gradually forgot about the abnormality just now. All of his attention was focused on the auction of the inheritance jade slip. "Thaling, don't worry. The owner of private room number 9 would never dare to go back on his word," Howren promised with full confidence. Since the bald phantom had the ability to conceal his existence from Thaling, it meant that Thaling was no match for the bald phantom at all. Therefore, Howren decided to hide the secret about the bald man's shadow and the golden book at the bottom of his heart for the time being. When he was strong enough to challenge the bald man's shadow, he would tell the tower spirit all the secrets. "Oh, so you know the origin of the owner of private room number 9. Seeing Howren's confident look, Thaling asked with great interest. "The Devil's Path." Nodding his head, Howren gave an answer that made Thaling very surprised. How dare he appear in the capital of the Qin Kingdom? Xianyang City of the Alliance of the Righteous Sex. Thaling, you are making a fuss over nothing. Facing Thaling's surprised exclamation, Yuhauran could not help but mock him. What is the righteous sex, and what is the demonic sex? They're just some people who want to gain more benefits and instigate the masses. Moreover, do you think that the great Emperor Qin of the Qin Kingdom really cares about the difference between the righteous sex and the demonic sex? To tell you the truth, the owner of private room number 9 is safer than anyone else in Xianyang City. Of course, the premise is that he does not take the initiative to cause trouble and expose his identity, attracting the attention of the ordinary people. All right, at least you have seen through it thoroughly. It was not that Thaling did not know what Yuhauran had just said, but he was affected by the bald phantom and did not react for a while. Chapter 545. In the auction hall of the Hidden Art Pavilion. Dear guest in private room 9, I'm really sorry. Feng Yun cupped his fists and apologized in the direction of private room 9. Because according to the rules of my Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion's auction house, in the face of such a huge price, we must first verify whether you have the ability to pay before deciding whether you can continue to participate in the auction for the inheritance jade slip. So, 3 billion. 3 billion 8th grade, 1st grade spirit stones. Even a peak 9th grade martial saint wouldn't carry such a huge amount of spirit stones around with him. Therefore, in order to protect the reputation of the auction hall and ensure the profits of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, Feng Yin had to verify if the owner of private room 9 had the ability to pay, just like how he treated Lu Guangyuan from the Yushi Temple. Of course, his tone and attitude were more polite and respectful. No problem. Unlike the arrogant elder Lu Guangyuan of the Hollow Jade Temple, the owner of room 9 readily agreed to Feng Yun's request to verify the number of spirit stones. However, he also made a request of his own. However, I hope that consecrated Feng can verify it personally. Sure. Feng Yun nodded and agreed without hesitation. After all, private room 9 was different from private room 3. Feng Yun didn't dare to enter private room 3 because Lu Guangyuan had the means and confidence to attack him. He also didn't have to worry about the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion and the Emperor Qin's kingdom taking revenge on him. However, the owner of private room 9 was different. If he dared to make a move in the private room, not only would the martial saints hidden in the auction hall take action, but even the experts of the Emperor Qin's kingdom wouldn't let him off. After entering private room 9 for a full 5 minutes, Feng Yin walked out with a satisfied smile. He returned to the stage and said to the crowd, I've personally verified that the guest in private room 9 has the ability to pay the astronomical price of 3 billion spirit stones. After Feng Yun's confirmation, the crowd was amazed at how wealthy the owner of private room 9 was. At the same time, they were more or less certain that the inheritance jade strip belonged to the owner. Is there anyone who wants to make a higher bid than the guest in private room 9? Feng Yun asked in a loud voice according to the rules of the auction house. After confirming that no one else was bidding, he began the countdown and announced with a smile that the inheritance jade slip belonged to the honored guest in private room number 9. After the staff in the number 9 private room traded the jade slip of inheritance, Feng Yun continued to auction several treasures. Among them was the third item provided by Yuhauran. It was a black saliva ball that had been newly modified by him. It could not only destroy the physical body, but also hurt the divine soul of a 9th grade martial emperor. Of course, the black saliva balls that he had modified all hid his unique means, which could definitely ensure that he would not be harmed by the black saliva balls. In the end, the black saliva ball was sold to a young man with a feminine temperament in the hall with a bid of 18 million. After the transaction of the black saliva ball ended, Xiao Mei, who had been in charge of transporting the auction items, did not appear on the high platform this time. Instead, 4 tall and sturdy men worked together to carry a cage wrapped in black cloth onto the high platform. Even though the cage was placed down gently, due to the weight of the cage itself, the entire platform let out a dull thud. How was this possible? Others had to remove the black cloth to see the treasure in the cage. However, Faling, whose divine sense was not restricted, immediately saw the item in the cage and exclaimed in disbelief. Faling, actually, this auction item is the trump card that made the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion famous in the Tianxian continent. It is also the ultimate treasure that sold for an astronomical price in this auction. Compared to Faling's shock, Yu Haoran's reaction was very calm, but there was a complicated expression on his face. Then, his gaze turned to the hall, to the woman in black who had almost made him lose control of his emotions. Ruine, is it worth it to take such a risk? Yu Haoran whispered to himself. Looking at the cage wrapped in black cloth, Feng Yun did not remove the black cloth immediately. Instead, he looked at it with a face full of reluctance. After looking at it for a full 5 minutes, he turned around again and spoke to the people in the hall and private rooms. Ladies and gentlemen, this auction item is the last auction item of the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. It is also the finale of this auction. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to keep you in suspense. Feng Yun walked to the side of the cage and removed the black cloth slightly, revealing the cage wrapped in black cloth. The hardest material in the Tianxian continent, the 9-heaven black iron, was fused with the crimson phoenix blood gold, which can automatically absorb energy. Even a 4th-level Saint Realm exotic beast would not be able to escape easily if it was locked in here. Feng Yun put down the black cloth that he had just removed and patted the cage hard. I believe that just this cage alone is worth more than a few hundred million. What kind of treasure is locked in this cage that is worth more than a few hundred million? I'm sure all of you know the final value of this treasure. At the same time, as this auction item is too important, the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion has been keeping a secret. As a result, all of you did not know about it beforehand and may not have made sufficient preparations. At this point, Feng Yun returned to where he had been standing and spoke loudly. As such, after discussion with Vice Pavilion Master Jiang, we can give all of you 2 hours so that you can prepare more spiritual stones for the auction. Master Feng, may I know the starting price of the treasure in the cage in advance? For the first time, the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion had given them 2 hours to prepare the spirit stones. Not only was the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion's decision out of everyone's expectations, it also made the young man in room number 1 and the room owners of the other forces' headquarters in Xianyang City ecstatic. As for the room owners who could not return to their forces in time, although they were dissatisfied with Feng Yun's decision, it was not as if they did not have a way to deal with it. They only needed to know the starting price of the last treasure and then consider what method they could use to prepare spiritual stones. According to my discussion with Vice Pavilion Master Jiang, the starting price of the last auction item is 1 billion, and each increment cannot be lower than 100 million spiritual stones, Feng Yun said with a smile. The starting price was 1 billion 8th level, 1st level spiritual stones. When they heard Feng Yun's bid, everyone in the hall gasped. At the same time, they gave up on the idea of participating in the auction. Therefore, the people in the hall did not leave like the people in the private rooms. Instead, they continued to stay in the hall and waited for Feng Yun to reveal the final mystery. Yu Haoran, check if there are any valuable treasures in your storage ring. Quickly exchange them for a large amount of spiritual stones. You must win this treasure during the auction. Faling used his divine sense to check the ring 3 times. After confirming that it was indeed that special treasure, he directly requested, Faling, don't worry about it. I won't be participating in the next auction. Chapter 546. Hidden Art Pavilion, Auction Hall. Yu Haoran, do you know what the treasure in the cage is? Faling asked anxiously in response to Yu Haoran's refusal to participate in the next auction. I know. Yu Haoran nodded and said with a complicated expression, the cage is suppressing a snake beauty with the bloodline of the ancient divine beast, White Python. It is a powerful exotic beast with a human head and a snake body. Then do you know what kind of heaven-defying effect the snake beauty has on you human warriors? Thowling was not surprised that Yu Haoran knew in advance that the treasure in the cage was an exotic beast, a snake beauty with the bloodline of the divine beast, white python. After all, Yu Haoran had studied the situation of this auction in detail in his previous life. It was normal for him to know what the last auction item was. However, Thowling believed that Yu Haoran definitely did not know what the snake beauty with the bloodline of the divine beast, white python, represented. However, to Thowling's surprise, Yu Haoran actually nodded and said, "The snake beauty with the bloodline of the divine beast, white python, has more ancient bloodlines than ordinary exotic beasts with the bloodline of the divine beast. It has a higher chance of becoming a legendary first-grade divine beast. Moreover, the snake beauty's physique belongs to the Nining body. If it is combined with a martial ancestor realm warrior, when the physical body and soul merge, the martial ancestor realm warrior's soul will be able to reach the great accomplishment realm, and his cultivation will instantly break through to the peak of the 9th grade martial emperor realm. If it is combined with a martial emperor realm expert, not only can it help the martial emperor realm expert directly comprehend the power of law, but it is also a powerful law that is ranked in the top 100 among thousands of laws. If it is combined with a martial saint realm expert, the comprehended power of law will instantly reach the great accomplishment realm, allowing the martial saint realm expert to reach the peak of the 9th grade martial saint realm in a very short period of time, and have the strength to break through to the martial honorable realm." Seeing that Yu Haoran had a very comprehensive understanding of the snake beauty, Thowling was even more puzzled and asked, "Since you know about the snake beauty's heaven-defying effect, why did you give up the bid?" "Kindness and strength." Taking a deep breath, Yu Haoran said with a hint of tenderness on his face. "Thowling, although the snake beauty is a unique exotic beast with the greatest atavistic ability among the myriad of exotic beasts, they are still snake-type exotic beasts. As for snake-type exotic beasts, they don't breed by themselves but by their nest." At this point, Yu Haoran pointed at the black-clothed woman standing in the middle of the hall and spoke with a tone full of emotion. "Thowling, the woman in black with the black cloak, is also a snake beauty. She's a powerful snake beauty who has reached the 4th level of the saint realm." Upon hearing Yu Haoran's reminder, Thowling instinctively wanted to use his divine sense to check. However, Yu Haoran, who understood his character, hurriedly stopped him. "Thowling, don't use your divine sense to spy on her." "Why not?" Thowling asked, puzzled. "I didn't make it clear just now." In fact, the black-clothed woman is a snake beauty who has reached the peak of the 9th level of the 4th level. She also has a complete Saint Realm magic weapon, Yu Haoran hurriedly explained. "Even so, I believe that a high-level martial venerable's divine sense can spy on everything she has without her noticing," Thowling said arrogantly. "If it were other exotic beasts, even if it were an early 3rd-level martial venerable, I believe that you can spy on them without anyone noticing." Yu Haoran shook his head and said solemnly, "But it won't work on her. That's because the complete Saint Realm magic weapon she has is specially used to restrain divine sense. Even if your spirit recovers to the peak of the martial venerable realm, your divine sense won't be able to get close to her body." "I see." After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, Thowling nodded. He finally understood why Yu Haoran had given up on bidding for the snake beauty. At the same time, he suddenly recalled the power of a battle between beasts at the peak of the Saint Realm and quickly reminded him. Yu Haoran, a 4th-level, 9th-level Saint Realm beast at the peak of the Saint Realm, can destroy the void with every attack. The aftershock of every attack can set off terrifying waves. You'd better leave the auction house before the bidding for the snake beauty begins. There's no hurry, Yu Haoran replied to the lady in black in the hall, shaking his head. Although he didn't know why Yu Haoran was unwilling to leave now, he knew that a peak Saint Realm expert could use the possession technique to ensure Yu Haoran's safety. Moreover, he also wanted to see who would get the snake beauty in the cage in the end, and whether there would be a chance to snatch it back for Yu Haoran. Therefore, Thowling didn't continue to persuade him to leave. 2 hours were very short. Just as the crowd was deep in discussion about the treasure in the cage, Feng Yun, who had just left, returned to the high platform. Even Jiang Yin, who had been angered by Lu Guangyuan earlier, also returned to the high platform. However, Jiang Yin, who had returned to the high platform, didn't stand with Feng Yun. Instead, she stood directly next to the cage wrapped in black cloth, as if Feng Yun was still the host of the auction. Feng Yun looked around the auction house and said in high spirits, 2 hours have passed. Everyone, 2 hours have passed. Regardless of whether the guests who left to prepare the spirit stones have returned in time or not, the auction for the last item will now begin. Then, he nodded to Jiang Yin, who was standing next to the cage. Jiang Yin, who nodded in response, reached out her hand and removed the black cloth wrapped around the cage, revealing the treasure suppressed inside. After seeing the treasure suppressed in the cage, everyone except Yu Haoran couldn't help but stand up and stare at the strange beast with the head of a human and the body of a snake in the cage. The snake beauty, it's actually the snake beauty that contains the bloodline of the ancient divine beast, the white python. The young man from room 1 had a look of naked possessiveness in his eyes as he stared at the strange beast with the head of a human and the body of a snake in the cage, mumbling to himself. Actually, it wasn't just the young man from room 1. The other important figures in the remaining rooms, as well as those in the hall who recognized the strange beast, had the same reaction as the young man. Although Yu Haoran couldn't see the situation in the private rooms, he could see the desire in the eyes of the men in the hall. He could see their instinctive reactions after seeing the snake beauty for the first time. Unfortunately, those people didn't know that the snake beauty's 9 body was both a good medicine and a poison. If you were truly in love with the snake beauty and she was willing to give up everything for you, then the 9 body would become a powerful aid for you to reach the peak of martial arts. Chapter 547. Hidden Art Pavilion, Auction Hall. The 9 body of the snake beauty was both a good medicine and a poison. This was not a legend, but a tragedy that had happened after countless bloody lessons. This was because in the deep sea where the snake beauty lived, there was a man who betrayed his love for the snake beauty and forcefully absorbed the 9 body of the snake beauty. In the end, he became a supremacy monster that was neither human nor demon. The snake beauty is a mutated beast that contains the bloodline of the ancient divine beast, the white hound. It is one of the most unique mutated beasts in the Tianxian continent. It is the mutated beast that has the highest chance of returning to its ancestral roots and breaking through the first grade, reproducing the ancient divine beast, the white hound. I'm sure all the men present here are very clear about what the snake beauty represents. This old man won't say anything more here. Although further explaining the various benefits of the snake beauty could further increase the desire of the people present to bid, Feng Yun only briefly mentioned the effects of the 9 body after considering the feelings of Jiang Yin, who was standing beside the cage, and his granddaughter below the stage. He then began to announce the start of the auction for the snake beauty. 2 billion 8 stage, first grade spirit stones. Just as Feng Yun announced the start of the auction for the snake beauty, a crisp and tender voice came from the second private room. This meant that the owner of the second private room was also a young man. 3 billion 8 stage, first grade spirit stones. After hearing the bid from the second private room, the young man in the first private room sneered and directly increased the price by 1 billion spirit stones, showing his determination to win. 4 billion 8 stage, first grade spirit stones. Just as the young man in the first private room finished his bid, the person in the seventh private room also increased the price by 1 billion spirit stones to show his determination to win. 4 billion 8 stage, first grade spirit stones. 4 billion 8 stage, first grade spirit stones. 5 billion 8 stage, first grade spirit stones. The heaven-defying effects of the snake beauty and the profoundness that only men would understand caused the price of the auction to skyrocket. In less than 3 minutes, the starting price of 1 billion rose to 7 billion. Moreover, the price did not stop rising. However, unlike the crazy bidding for the inheritance jade slip, the auction for the snake beauty kept everyone calm. Moreover, the people who participated in the auction were only those in the dozen private rooms that were ranked closer to each other. God, please don't get involved in this. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for me. Although Yuhauran had already stated that he wouldn't participate in the competition for the Snake Beauty, he was still very nervous. Of course, she wasn't nervous for herself, but for Xiang Wenxuan, who was in room 12. Yuhauran knew very well how strong the Snake Belle's desire for revenge was as a snake-type exotic beast. Emperor Qin had personally taken action in his previous life, and the black-clothed woman had eventually been suppressed. However, she had managed to escape from Xianyang City by relying on her strength at the peak of the Sage Realm and the might of a complete Sage Realm divine tool. After that, except for the young men in private rooms 1 and 2 who had stayed in Xianyang City, the black-clothed woman was unable to carry out her bloody revenge. Everyone who had participated in the auction of the Snake Belle had died tragically in her hands. Although the Valley of the Medicine Masters was very famous, the strength of the top powerhouses was not strong. If Xiang Wenxuan also participated in this auction for the Snake Beauty, he would definitely be hunted down by the black-clothed woman in the future. And with his special relationship with the black-clothed woman, he couldn't interfere, but he also couldn't not interfere. When the bidding price of the Snake Beauty exceeded 8 billion, the atmosphere of the auction gradually cooled down. Moreover, the bidding wasn't as wild as it had been at the beginning. 1 billion first-grade 8th level spirit stones. The young man in private room 1, who had just borrowed a portion of the spirit stones from the young girl, gradually lost his confidence as he bid. After a full 3 minutes, just as Feng Yin was about to ask if there was anyone else who wanted to participate in the auction, a bid came from private room 2. 2 billion first-grade 8th level spirit stones. Damn it. Seeing that he was being suppressed by the person in private room 2, the young man in private room 1 gritted his teeth and cursed. 1 billion first-grade 8th level spirit stones were all that he and his sister had. Although he could continue to mobilize a portion of the spirit stones, there wasn't enough time. Brother Tian, E8. 2 billion first-grade 8th level spirit stones is my limit. If you continue to bid, I will automatically admit defeat. Just as the young man in private room 1 was gritting his teeth and cursing, a smug and provocative voice came from private room 2. Sister Jiao, do you have any treasure on you that could be exchanged for spirit stones? As the emperor of the Qin Kingdom, the young man called Tian, he really wanted the Snake Beauty, but his good upbringing made him deeply understand the principle of acting according to one's ability. Therefore, he had already subconsciously decided to give up the idea of bidding. After the provocation from private room 2, he decided to continue bidding. Third brother, I have a birthday gift for Mother here. It should be worth a few 100 million spirit stones. Why didn't he use it first? Originally, the young girl hated her brother for participating in the auction for the delicate and pitiful Snake Beauty in the cage. However, as a descendant of an imperial family, the young girl knew that she couldn't offend her third brother, who had the potential to compete for the throne. Otherwise, not only would she be troubled everywhere in the future, but her mother would also be implicated. Therefore, after careful consideration, the young girl took out her most precious treasure, a protective jade pendant, and handed it to Tianyi. Sister Jiao, don't worry. After the auction is over, I will help you redeem this life-saving jade pendant. After promising the young girl, Tianyi took the life-saving jade pendant and shouted loudly. 5 billion first-grade 8th level spirit stones. After the bidding, Tianyi proudly provoked the man in private room 2. Brother Meng Sheng 5 billion first-grade 8th tier spirit stones is also my limit. As long as you're willing to increase the price, even if it's just a single first-grade 8th tier spirit stone, I'll immediately give up the bid for the Snake Beauty. Damn it. Meng Sheng in private room 2 gritted his teeth and cursed, just like Tianyi when he heard the provocation. However, unlike Tianyi, Meng Sheng was participating in the auction alone. Even if he wanted to borrow spirit stones, he didn't have anyone to lend them to. In the end, Meng Sheng could only give up the bid while cursing. This time, after waiting for a full 5 minutes and making sure that no one was bidding against Prince Tian E in Private Room 1, Feng Yun said with a smile, "It seems that the final winner of the Snake Beauties auction is the in Private Room 1. Wait." Chapter 548. My apologies, my mother-in-law suddenly fell ill around 5 in the afternoon. I've been taking care of her until now. I've rushed out the last chapter. Please forgive me if there are any typos. Hidden Art Pavilion, Auction Hall. Feng Yun was very displeased that someone had suddenly interrupted his chance to curry favor with the emperor. However, he considered that the person who had interrupted him would likely continue to raise the price of the Snake Beauty and increase his and the auction's reputation. Thus, Feng Yun could only suppress his displeasure and asked with a smile, "Could it be that you're willing to continue bidding for the Snake Beauty?" "That's right," the black-clothed woman replied as she walked towards the high platform. "Then how much do you intend to bid?" Feng Yun asked with a frown. The black-clothed woman's current actions and the hostility in her tone when she replied to his question made it seem like she was looking for trouble. 10 billion level 8 spirit stones. How about that? The black-clothed woman replied with gritted teeth. "Friend, you must be joking." Feng Yun asked with a cold smile as he watched the black-clothed woman approach the high platform. He gestured to the martial saints and martial emperors guarding the area to raise their guard. At the same time, Feng Yun suddenly understood that the Snake Beauty's various heaven-defying abilities were targeted at men. The black-clothed woman before him must be looking for trouble. "You must be joking." The black-clothed woman sneered as she walked up to the high platform. She suddenly reached out and took off her black cloak, revealing a beautiful face that was exactly the same as the beautiful snake in the cage. "Who exactly are you?" Feng Yun turned his head to look at the Snake Beauty in the cage, then at the black-clothed woman who had revealed her true appearance. He immediately thought of a rumor about the Snake Beauty's descendants. He couldn't help but ask, "Who am I?" The black-clothed woman asked herself sorrowfully before laughing heartily at Feng Yun's question. Then she laughed heartily. 2 crystalline tears flowed from the corners of the black-clothed woman's eyes as she laughed heartily. "I'm Ruyin, and she's Ru Yun. We're identical sisters from the same mother." The black-clothed woman's voice was filled with warmth as she pointed at the Snake Beauty in the cage, who could only crawl pitifully in the cage with her powers sealed. Then, the warm voice was gradually replaced by happiness. "Ruyun's talent and bloodline are far superior to mine. He reached the peak of the 4th rank, 9th rank, Saint Realm 20 years earlier than me. At the same time, he has the strength to break through to the 3rd rank, Exalted Realm. 20 years of preparation, 20 years of painstaking effort. As long as Riyun shed his mortal body, he will definitely be able to successfully break through to the 3rd grade Venerated Realm and become a powerful elder of our Snake Beauty clan." His happy voice was gradually replaced by anger. "But I never thought that I would never be able to forgive myself for the rest of my life. I was actually deceived by a man whom I gave all my feelings to. Not only did that man cheat me of my feelings and my nining body, he even tricked me into leaving the younger sister I needed to protect. In the end, when Riyun shed her mortal body and became as weak as an ordinary exotic beast, that man's subordinates sealed her strength and auctioned her off. Riyun reached out and tore off her clothes, revealing her snake body. Her expression was filled with anger as she questioned, "Do you know how important it is for our Snake Beauty clan to shed our mortal body? Do you know that after Riyun was sealed and shed her mortal body, not only did she lose the opportunity to break through to the 3rd rank Exalted Realm, she also lost the strength of the peak of the 4th rank, 9th rank. I'm sorry, I don't know the person who sealed and captured your sister. Our Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion was only entrusted by that person to auction your sister." Feng Yun explained with a pale face when faced with Ru Yin's continuous questioning. After all, Ru Yin had clearly stated that she was also a powerful exotic beast at the peak of the 4th rank, 9th rank Saint Realm. An expert with such a cultivation level was an existence that the heavenly fragrance pavilion could not afford to offend. You don't know each other. Ruin sneered when she saw Feng Yun denying that person's identity to shirk his responsibility. My snake beauty clan, apart from the ancestral bloodline that you know, and the nining body that can help raise one's cultivation, we also have a secret technique that can peer into the consciousness of our beloved. Your heavenly fragrance pavilion may be able to hide your relationship with that person from others, but you can't hide it from me, Ruin. Feng Yun, do you dare swear on your soul that you don't know that person? Feng Yun, do you dare swear on the rules of the heavens that you have no relationship with that person? Miss Ruin, what do you want? Feng Yun was no fool. How could he possibly jump into Ruin's trap if he swore on the rules of the heavens and his soul? At the same time, he quickly changed the topic to avoid exposing his relationship with that person. My request is very simple. He directly walked past Feng Yun and arrived before the cage. With just a glance, Jiang Yin, who was already a peak third-grade martial saint, was instantly injured. She spat out a mouthful of blood and was forced back 6 steps. Her ruddy complexion instantly turned completely pale. Boom! She extended her slender hand and slammed it heavily on the cage. A deafening boom immediately resounded in the auction hall. When the deafening boom disappeared, Ruin discovered that the cage made of the phoenix blood scarlet gold didn't seem deformed at all. Thus, she turned around and made her request to Feng Yun. My first request is to immediately open the cage and let my sister out. Sure. As the snake beauty that everyone fought over, Ruin, who was also a snake beauty, had risked being captured and barged into Xianyang City in order to save Ruyun. Thus, her request was within Feng Yun's expectations. While agreeing to Ruyun's request would result in losing the astronomical price of 5 billion spirit stones, the auction hall and the heavenly fragrance pavilion wouldn't suffer too much of a loss. This was because the snake beauty Ruin wasn't the heavenly fragrance pavilion's auction item. They had only been entrusted by that person to carry out the auction. Although they had agreed that the heavenly fragrance pavilion could take 5% of the profits, both the pavilion master and Feng Yun knew that they would at most keep 10 or 20 million spirit stones as a token of appreciation. The rest of the spirit stones would have to be given to that person. After all, that person was different from Lu Guangyuan. He was the person who could decide the fate of the heavenly fragrance pavilion. Thus, even if they lost the snake beauty and couldn't obtain the 5 billion spirit stones, the heavenly fragrance pavilion wouldn't suffer any losses. Instead, the auction hall's reputation would increase because of the astronomical price of 5 billion spirit stones. Overall, the heavenly fragrance pavilion had made a profit this time. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.